Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where OP's not happy that her daughter's teacher wants to redistribute her school supplies. Am I the jerk for writing my daughter's name on every single school supply? So I, 31 female, am an adoptive mom to an 8-year-old daughter named Lily. We decided to go school supply shopping because I enrolled her in a Before School Starts program. A month before school starts, they learn some extracurricular stuff. Lily really wanted to join the program, so we went out and bought all of the school supplies. I've had problems with people stealing from Lily, so I made sure to mark everything. We bought all of the required supplies, including a clear backpack. To prevent theft, I used super glue to put her name on the clear backpack so no one could take it. It's bound to happen otherwise. We got a really cute pencil pouch, and I wrote her name on it with a Sharpie on the inside of the pouch. I also wrote her name on the box of markers and every individual marker. I did the same with the scissors and the glue stick. I basically wrote her name on everything to prevent theft. I sent her to the program, but when Lily came home, she was upset, though not crying. Apparently, we weren't supposed to write names on the school supplies because everything was going to be mixed up and distributed to everyone. I called the teacher, and they explained that they didn't have enough money to get every single kid their own supplies, so they planned on distributing the supplies evenly. The teacher shamed Lily for it. Now I don't know what to do. Not the jerk. If schools have trouble getting supplies for all the students, then they should make that announcement so parents can volunteer to pitch in extra for the kids who go without. I will never understand shaming parents and kids for wanting to use their own supplies. Wait, they shamed her over the misunderstanding? I know that's not the point of the post, but I would be losing my cool over the teacher taking it out on the student. You're the jerk. As someone who grew up not having much, I fully support redistribution of school supplies. You may be able to afford all the supplies that your kid needs, but not everyone else has that privilege, and you really need to check yours. When you're lucky enough to be born with a silver spoon in your hand, like men are for example, then it's your responsibility to ensure that those less fortunate than you can have a fair share too. The lack of compassion is what's destroying our country, and it's why we are probably going to have another 4 years of disaster come November.
Hey Reddit boy, how did it feel to be born with a silver spoon in your hand?
It was okay, but it kind of clashed with my diamond pacifier. Weird guy shows up at my parents' house at 1 a.m. looking for me and using details of my life that were valid 20 years ago. This happened 3 nights ago, and I'm going crazy trying to figure it out. I just moved into a new apartment 1 month ago, and I'm still unpacking and settling in. I've been using my parents' address as my mailing address, who live a few towns over, 20 minutes away, all of my life. 3 nights ago, my parents called me at 2 a.m., freaked out, and proceed to tell me this story. Apparently at 1 a.m., someone starts banging on their front door and repeatedly ringing their doorbell. My stepdad walks downstairs and opens the door, leaving the front glass door closed and locked. There was a man standing outside who looked to be in his 30s with a black hoodie on, with the hood pulled up around his face. He didn't have any distinguishing facial features, facial hair, or tattoos. The only thing my stepdad said was that he looked to be Hispanic. Neither my stepdad or my mother, who was watching the whole thing out a window, recognized the man. The man says, "I'm so sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for OP." My stepdad plays dumb and says, "Who?" The man proceeds to state my full name again and says that my boyfriend is worried because I didn't come home that night. He claims to be a friend of my boyfriend and tells my stepdad that they're both out looking for me, worried because I didn't show up at home. I don't have a boyfriend. I live by myself with my 3 dogs and haven't been in a relationship in the past 6 months. Here's the weird part. My stepdad asked the guy what boyfriend he was talking about, and the man tells him the name of the boyfriend I had when I was in 10th grade, nearly 20 years ago. My boyfriend in 10th grade had a very, very unique Italian name. I've never met anyone with a full name even close to his. He says my high school boyfriend's name a few more times to ensure my stepdad heard him, and he repeats that they are very worried about me. Is my stepdad sure I'm not inside? At this point, my stepdad is weirded out and he closes and locks the door in his face. The man does not leave. He lingers in front of my parents' house for the next 10 minutes, smoking cigarettes and talking on the phone. Finally, my parents call the cops. About 5 minutes before the cops arrive, the man walks down to the dead end on their block and he drives away in a silver car. Stepdad was unable to get the license plate. My parents file a police report and nothing else happens. After I hear this story, I'm going nuts over the weird details. How would someone know who I dated nearly 20 years ago, and what would be the motive of making up a story that included that weird detail about my past? I have not had contact with the 10th grade boyfriend in over a decade. Yesterday, I decided to message him on Facebook to see if he has any insight, I tell him the whole story, and he's just as confused as I am and claims to have no part in it. I'm at a loss. I'm really freaked out that some strange man is going through that much trouble at 1 a.m. to look for me. Any insights or ideas would be greatly appreciated. No, nothing else weird has happened since then. To answer a few questions, first off, I'm not in any legal trouble and I have no reason to think someone would be suing me. I mean, I guess it's always in the realm of possibility that I'm being sued by someone, but I really don't think that's it. Like I previously said, I had an expired registration ticket that I did not show up to court for, but I believe I got a letter in the mail just asking me to pay a fee, so I don't think that it's related to that. I did take out a personal loan. I took it out about 1.5 years ago. It wasn't for anything too crazy, and I was really good with making payments on time until about 6 months ago when I had a medical issue. Currently, I'm really behind on payments, but to my knowledge, I have not defaulted on the loan yet. What do you guys think? I had absolutely no idea that this is a thing, or that I would have to include this in the detail to begin with. Let me know your thoughts. Update. I called the loan company, and they claimed to have nothing to do with it. All of my friends and family also noted the 1 a.m. factor kind of rules that out anyways. Nothing else strange happened to my parents. I went there for the first time last night and kept a close eye out for anything. Didn't observe anything out of the norm, so this remains a mystery. I'll be sure to update soon. Update. My stepsister, my stepdad's daughter, and her fiancé were at a house party right after the holidays, around early January of this year. While they were there, they started talking to a girl that neither of them knew. After some time talking together, the girl started talking about her ex-boyfriend and how they were going through a really tough time together. They had just recently broken up, and she felt really bad because he was a wreck over it. Somehow it came up that this girl's ex-boyfriend was my 10th grade boyfriend, the one with the really unique Italian name. The whole situation wasn't that big of a coincidence, so I went to high school with my stepsister's fiancé, and we have a lot of mutual friends. So it makes sense that they were at a party that would include some people I went to high school with. As soon as my stepsister and her fiancé hear this, they both start freaking out, and without revealing too many details, they tell the girl about the whole mystery and how weird it is. As they're telling the story, the girl's face starts to go white, and she looks like she's about to cry. My stepsister and fiancé try to console her and ask what's wrong. The wine and beer had been flowing at this point, so I'm sure everyone was a little tipsy. The girl starts to tell them that just a few nights ago, she was sleeping, and someone started banging on her door at 1 a.m., just like what happened to me at my parents'. The girl jumps out of bed and says she was absolutely terrified by how loud and aggressive someone was banging on her door. She said she literally thought it was going to be a break-in. The girl has a Ring camera, so she looks on her phone. There on the camera is a guy in a black hoodie banging on her door. She obviously pretends like she isn't home and keeps all of the lights off. He continues banging. As she's getting ready to dial 911, the guy stops and leaves. She said she was absolutely terrified. For whatever reason, she didn't end up calling the cops, but may have went to stay with a friend that night or the night after. My stepsister and fiancé are shocked by the details and how similar it is to my story, especially because of the mutual ex-boyfriend we share, except this girl literally just broke things off with him. They asked the girl if she has any idea who the guy is, and she said no, but that it definitely is not the actual ex-boyfriend. She said this guy was much taller and heavier than our shared mutual ex. How weird. This mystery is still unsolved, and these new details honestly just make my head spin even more. No one else has showed up to my parents' door since the actual incident a year ago. A few answers to some questions. 10th grade boyfriend has been to my parents' house multiple times. My parents still live in the same house I grew up in, and 10th grade boyfriend has been over many times while we dated in high school. I don't know where he currently lives, but he grew up about 10 minutes away from my parents' house. 10th grade boyfriend and I had a horrible breakup. I met my high school sweetheart while I was dating him and broke up with him in a pretty messed up way. He held a grudge over it all throughout high school and was extremely nasty to me to the point of bullying. At one point, I had to get a security guard to escort me to classes. I can definitely try reaching out to him on Facebook again and bringing back up this whole mystery with the added updates from his recent ex-girlfriend to see what his reaction is and gauge whether or not he's being truthful in it. I can also ask some mutual high school friends who know him about how he currently is, if he's into any weird things or not. My stepsister only gave me a first name and description of recent ex-girlfriend from the party, but I can go on 10th grade boyfriend's Facebook and look for her under his friends, then reach out to her on Facebook Messenger to inquire about Ring footage and ask her more questions, also to see if she ever reached out to the cops. I agree this is probably the best thing to do if I want more answers, but I agree I need to be careful as I still don't know what's going on here. 10th grade boyfriend does not have a brother, just one younger sister that I remember back from high school. I decided I'm going to try and find out the girl's name so I can look her up on social media. I may even be able to find her with just the first name that I already know from my stepsister telling me. I can go on to 10th grade boyfriend's Facebook and look in his friends list for a girl with the same first name who looks like she could have been his ex-girlfriend. He may even have pictures with her tagged, so it shouldn't be that hard unless he wiped his social media clean after they broke up. When I'm able to find her, I'm going to reach out to her and try to get some answers. I think this is the safest route since I still don't know 10th grade boyfriend's role in this, and I did already ask him once, and he claimed to have no part in it or know anything, which may or may not have been a lie. Based on how scared my stepsister said this girl was, I'm betting she'll be willing to talk to me about it since we shared the experience. I'm going to guess that the ex owes someone money. I assumed it was going to be related to some sort of criminal associates looking for him. I'm going to go with the ex-boyfriend sending someone around to scare them, which is really weird for OP. If they truly did not have contact for 10 years and the breakup was 20 years ago, that's a very long obsession and a very scary person to have in her past. Am I the jerk for reporting my boss after he forced me to attend a meeting despite knowing I was in labor? I, 28 female, have been working at my company for 5 years, and until recently, I loved my job. I was 8 months pregnant when this happened about a month ago, so I started having contractions while at work. Since I was not due yet, I thought it was just Braxton Hicks because they weren't that intense. Just a week before that, I had experienced Braxton Hicks, and I went to the hospital, but it was a false alarm. This time, I was still working when the contractions started in the morning, and I again thought it was Braxton Hicks. Braxton Hicks contractions are contractions of the uterus that typically are not felt until the second or third trimester of the pregnancy. I didn't want to cause a scene, so I tried to keep working. Last time I went to the hospital, my boss, John, who's 45, made sarcastic comments about me being overly dramatic and joked about how I should schedule my labor around important meetings. I have social anxiety and tend to take people's crap without pushing back, so I just took it. By noon, the contractions were getting stronger and closer together, and I knew it was real labor. I needed to go to the hospital. I informed John that I was in labor and I needed to leave. He rolled his eyes and said, "Just stay for the meeting at 1 p.m. It's crucial and we need you there." I was stunned. I reiterated that I was in active labor and I needed to go to the hospital immediately. John snapped back, "It's just a meeting. Sit through it and then you can go. It's not like the baby's going to pop out right now." Feeling pressured and scared for my job, I reluctantly stayed. The meeting lasted an excruciating 2 hours. By the end of it, I was in so much pain that I could barely walk. I finally left and drove myself to the hospital where I was admitted immediately. My husband got there 30 to 40 minutes later because he was on the other side of town for a meeting. My daughter was born later that evening, thankfully healthy despite the delay. When I told my husband what had happened, he was furious and insisted we report John to HR. I was hesitant because I didn't want to jeopardize my job, but I agreed it was the right thing to do. HR was appalled and assured me that they would handle the situation. John has since been suspended pending an investigation. The real kicker? During the investigation, it came out that John had emailed the entire office while I was in labor, complaining about my lack of commitment and making fun of me for overreacting. He even implied that I was using my pregnancy as an excuse to get out of work. Now my coworkers are upset at me, saying I overreacted and that I should have just sucked it up for the sake of the company. I've even received messages and emails from a few colleagues saying that I've ruined John's career and that he was just doing his job under pressure. One even said that I should have toughed it out like their wife did during her pregnancy. The stress from this whole ordeal has made it difficult to enjoy my first few days with my newborn. I'm constantly second-guessing myself and feeling guilty, despite knowing I did what was best for my baby and me. To make matters worse, the interim manager who took over from John is even worse. He's made it clear to everyone that he resents my actions and has made my return to work unbearable. Now that my maternity leave is over, I find myself isolated at work. People give me side eyes and whisper about me. During lunch, I'm alone because no one wants to sit with the troublemaker. It feels like high school all over again. I dread going into work each day and facing the hostility and judgment. I never imagined that doing what was right for my health and my baby's well-being would turn my colleagues against me like this. It's gut-wrenching to feel so isolated and vilified for simply standing up for myself and my rights. I cry most of the time when I come home, and sometimes even in the office washroom when someone passes a comment. In the worst moments, I get mad at my husband and blame him for making me tell HR, even though I know he did the right thing. He's so sweet and never takes it to heart. I apologize soon after, but he always says he wasn't even mad and that he understands how I'm feeling, especially since I'm just 1 month postpartum. He says I should take action and complain, but I don't want to make things worse. He's also saying he can't see me like this and that I should just quit because it's hurting him. I don't know what to do. I'm just such a sensitive and emotional person in general, and now it's been worse since giving birth. Am I the jerk for reporting my boss after he forced me to attend a meeting despite knowing I was in labor? HR knows that if something had happened to you and your baby, the company would have been in deep, deep trouble. Your manager could have really damaged them. That's why he's in trouble. Now they're about to do themselves over again. Not your fault. Have no pity. Not the jerk. Your boss is a complete and utter disgrace. Forcing you to stay during labor is not just unethical, it's potentially criminal. You did the right thing by reporting him. Your health and your baby's health comes first. Your coworkers who are siding with him clearly have no empathy or understanding of basic human decency. You deserve to work in an environment where you're respected and treated with dignity, not bullied and coerced into putting your life at risk. Am I the jerk for refusing to do a paternity test on my kids? My ex-husband and I have 3 kids. It was a difficult split as he left while I was pregnant with our twins, and he tried to make everything as difficult as possible. He and his wife want me to do a paternity test on the kids as they are disputing that our youngest is his and he no longer wants to pay child support for her. Him wanting to reduce his child support has been an ongoing issue. For the last 5 years, he hasn't had a problem regarding the paternity of any of our kids. He's now stating that he doesn't think that our daughter is his and that I've cheated on him because she doesn't look like him. She doesn't look much like me either. She's got green eyes like I do. Both of us are pale with light-colored hair and eyes. Our daughter has dark hair that is thick and curly. She looks mixed race, and she's the only one who looks this way. Her twin brother looks like my ex-husband. My daughter looks like my grandmother who was mixed race. I'll be honest that I don't get along with his ex-wife. I mean, it's hard to get along with the woman who your husband left you for. She keeps trying to shove herself into my kids' lives and acting like their mom. She keeps insisting that she's mama and they should refer to her as that. They have refused to call her that, which always ends in my ex calling me frustrated that the kids won't give her respect. She's recently been pointing out that my youngest doesn't look like her siblings, and she's been suggesting that my youngest isn't my ex-husband's. I'm close with my former sister-in-law, and she told me before my ex did that she wanted a paternity test and was going to stop paying child support for her. She's also said that X and his wife are once again having money issues. This was something I had already suspected, as he had stopped taking them on his weekends as he was having to work overtime. Before people tell me to document this, I have everything documented. I refuse to answer calls from him, which forces him to either text or email me so I can keep the conversation records, as I don't trust him. After I found out about him wanting a paternity test, I told him that I wasn't going to consent to him doing a paternity test on our kids, and the only way he was getting one was if he took me to court. He told me that it was clear our daughter wasn't his and that she didn't look like her siblings. He argued that he couldn't afford court and I was holding his money hostage by forcing him to pay for a kid who's not his. He has now apparently been whining about me on Facebook about how I cheated on him and I'm forcing him to raise another man's kid and forced him to sign the birth certificate. I didn't. He wasn't even there. But as we were still married, I could put him on without him being there. I don't follow him. I had one of his friends try and confront me about it. I want my kids to have a relationship with their dad, and I feel this is stopping them. Though on the other hand, I know there will be something else that he or his wife takes issue with down the line. Am I the jerk for refusing to do a paternity test? Edit. My ex wants me to pay for the test. He doesn't want to because of his financial situation, which is why I told him to take it to court and get a court-mandated one. I know if I was to pay for it, then he would want another one because he'll think that I tampered with it as I paid for it. He did the same when I had the house valued so I could give him half. He didn't like what the first person valued it at, so I had to get another. I know I haven't cheated on him and the baby was his. Update. Jim kept complaining to his dad, Mick, and brother about me and how I was financially mistreating him by taking money from him for a kid that wasn't his and refusing to pay for the test. Now, Mick and I get along very well. He adores his grandkids and they also adore him, and I've never attempted to stop them from having a relationship, unlike Jim, who often attempts to weaponize the kids. I get along well with Jim's family and we are close. His sister-in-law and I are very close. She's like the sister I never had. Mick asked if he were to pay for the paternity test if I would allow it to happen. Mick explained that he wasn't accusing me of anything, but he was fed up of seeing Jim and his wife drag me every chance they got. He understood why I was refusing and agreed with me. I agreed, but stated that Jim should choose the company that the paternity test is done through, and I didn't want to know which one was chosen. That way, I wasn't involved. So we had the test. Mick paid for all 3 of the kids to get tested and had them tested with a private company Jim chose, and then a private company Mick's lawyer recommended. Mick explained he did this so that if Jim started arguing against the results, calling them fake, then Mick had another set to back them up. And what do you know? All 3 of the kids are Jim's. Since we've gotten the results, Jim has tried arguing that they're wrong and that the youngest is definitely not his. He's also been going on Facebook to complain about me and is threatening to take me to court for fraud. The man couldn't afford to pay for a paternity test. He definitely can't afford a lawyer to take me to court, but I'd like to see him try. Former sister-in-law has been screenshotting some of his comments and sending them over to me, which we've been having a giggle over, especially since one of the things Jim has been whining about is finding out that I've been dating a former friend of his. I say former because he, along with some others, were cut out by Jim's wife. Jim's upset because I am alienating him from the kids by dating someone new. Coming from the man who left me when I was pregnant for his now wife, who keeps trying to insist she is mama to my kids. My kids only met my boyfriend for the first time this weekend after we have been dating for over a year. Before people jump to Jim's defense and claim that I'm alienating him, I've never stopped him from seeing or communicating with the kids. He's the one that decides when he's interested in being their dad. So yeah, unsurprisingly, my kids are Jim's. Jim is still an idiot. The kids are happy as they're off to have a sleepover at their granddad's with their cousins, while I get to have wine and spend the evening catching up with former sister-in-law. Jim and his wife are still mouthing off on social media, but it's falling on deaf ears for the most part. Entitled mom loses it because I bought a car she doesn't know how to drive. So I was talking to my husband and this story came up. He said I should share it here. To start off, this happened almost 8 years ago, so dialogue might be off a bit. So little backstory. My mom has a bad history with cars. She breaks them down within 2 years of getting them, no matter the condition they're in when she buys them. She cannot take care of them. When my older sister bought her first car at 19, my mom would borrow it for appointments and trips constantly. And by the time I was 18, you could tell she drove it. Well, I saved up money for 6 years, working hard to get enough for the car I wanted. And my grandpa even pitched in when I turned 18 and graduated high school with better grades than my sister. My grandpa went to the dealership with me and looked at Ford Focuses because that's what I wanted. Then I saw it, a 5-speed, 2-door Ford Focus, and I loved it. Why? Because my mom couldn't drive a standard. I smiled. So we get it for a steal at $4,000 up front. Then we drive home and the following conversation ensues. We've got me, we've got entitled mom, and we've got awesome grandpa, and we've got entitled sister. Me, I got my car. They run outside to check it and are admiring it and smiling. Entitled mom,
Wow. Hey, can I borrow it sometime?
me, no, you can't drive stick, mom. Entitled mom is shocked.
What? But how are you gonna learn to drive it?
Awesome grandpa, I'm gonna teach her. Entitled sister looks angry. She can't drive stick either, and I know she planned to use my car since entitled mom damaged hers. Entitled sister, but you can't take a driving test with a standard. They don't allow that. Grandpa, yes they do. Now stop whining. It's her car, not yours. Unless you two were planning to take it from her. Entitled sister and entitled mom look nervous. They would never admit it to awesome grandpa. He'd kick them out. And since they lived with him at the time and were broke, that wasn't a good idea. Entitled sister, of course not. I just worry about my baby girl. That's all. Me, sorry, but no one is driving this car but me and awesome grandpa. I can't wait to learn. Over the next week, they glared at me and hated that I was learning. Mom asked grandpa to teach her at one point, and he said it was up to me since I had the only standard car. Nope, my car. I had that car until I was 22 when my husband crashed it due to avoiding a drunk driver. Best little car I ever had. Oh, and entitled mom still can't drive a standard. Edit. Oh my gosh, guys. I went to bed and you all blew this up so fast. Because it was mentioned a lot in the comments, I'm gonna put it here. Yes, I live in America, and when I said my mom was bad with cars, I did not mean gas and a mess, though she does make a mess. I meant that she actually drives like a nutcase. Examples are she rides her brakes constantly, forgets to turn the car all the way off, leaving the battery to die, doesn't change the oil, ever, expects others to repair it for free, takes shortcuts through roads that destroy your tires, drives as fast as she can over tracks, destroying the tires and the alignment. And she lets her friends in the car, and any car she drives that has no respect for her or the vehicle. My sister had stains on her passenger seat from one of the friends Mom helped. I hope this clears things up a bit on why I was so eager to get a car she couldn't drive. Also, my grandfather had a rule. Keys always went on the key rack. Spares stayed at home in case you locked yourself out of your car with your keys inside it somewhere, and he could come and get you and save us from spending money to get the keys out. I used to work with a guy whose parents were constantly using his new vehicle. They never returned it with any gas in the tank. It was always dirty. He traded it in for an even nicer one, but with a manual. He was the only person in his family that could drive it. Karen is a non-tipper, so I deliver her pizza last. I was the only driver working due to the restaurant being short-staffed. This one lady ordered, and then 2 minutes later, 2 more orders came in, so I had to take a triple. The first time I delivered to her, she shouted at me to just leave the pizza on the porch. The second time, I just left it there. She didn't pre-tip, so there was no chance for me to get a tip when I just left. The other 2 orders had pre-tips of $18 and $6 each. The $18 tip was for like 7 pizzas and wings. They were all in an opposite direction, northeast and south. So I took the big tippers, then the medium tippers, then hers. By the time I got there, it had been 70 minutes since she ordered, and as I rolled up, she came out of the house to shout at me for being late. She asked,
Why the heck did it take so long?
So I straight up told her that I had 3 orders spread out, and that since she didn't tip, I took hers last. This set her off. She shouted about how I didn't know she wasn't going to tip me, and that I had made assumptions about her. So she called up the store and told my manager that I'm the one in the wrong here. She lied and said that I yelled at her, and she demanded a new fresh pizza. I was the only guy working, and we had 2 other orders I needed to take. So I told the manager that, I quote, I'm never gonna deliver to that lying jerk again. My manager was cool with it. He knows about the customer complaints, I guess. So he told her that she'd get a refund, but that we couldn't send another order out today. She complained to corporate, and apparently the district manager called my in-store manager, who talked down the DM and said something like, we can't afford to lose staff right now. Am I the jerk for taking deliveries out of order to favor tippers over her? Or for refusing delivery after she yelled and lied about me yelling at her? Well, who do you think is the jerk? The delivery driver or Karen? Please let us know.
You reap what you sow, Karen. Maybe leave a tip next time.
Update. My entitled mom wants to buy my eggs in exchange for a PS5. My mother had texted me this morning asking how I felt about egg donations again. She doesn't seem mad like last time, so I think she's calmed down. I'm sorry if this doesn't seem realistic. I'm copying and pasting exactly from my messages. Me. Good morning, Mom. Did you ask me to text you when I woke up, or was that a part of my dream last night? I have very vivid dreams when I'm half awake. Entitled Mom, now demoted to just Mother. I wanted you to text me. Me. Oh, okay, so it wasn't a dream. What did you want to text about? Mom. No, just if you don't mind helping me clean my bathroom a little bit today. Me. Oh, I don't mind. Mom. You know, I've been feeling down and don't feel like doing anything today. Me. I know, Mom. I know my message makes it sound like I don't care, but my mom in the past loved to call wolf. She used to act all sad and depressed to make me feel bad about it and even once admitted to it. Mom. You still think giving me some of your eggs is weird? Me. Uncomfortable again. Very, Mom. I'm sorry. Kay. Me. Also, the procedure is like really painful, I've heard. Mother. No, it's not. Me. What do you mean? Mother. I don't think it's painful, but I understand. Me. Have you even heard how they do it? How they get the eggs out? Mother. Yes, small little incisions where they go in there and get them out. Me. They have to give you so many shots that in some cases you have to do it yourself. Then, after so many ultrasound tests, they check how many there are. Mother. Yes, you're right. Me. Plus, I checked online and it can really affect the way I have kids. It's very dangerous, Mom. I don't want to be selfish when I say that. Even if I don't know if I want kids yet, I don't want to lower my chances of getting them because there are risks. Mother, probably now realizing that it's wrong of her to ask me. I know, that's what I'm scared about. I would never want to affect you for me to be selfish. Me, I'm scared about it too. There are so many risks, especially for my age, as I could be too young for it. That's why the age minimum is at least 19 to 21. Some places require you to even have a kid first. Mother, I'm just saying, babe. I won't ask you, babe, because like you said, it's not easy, and I'm scared that it would affect you. Then why would you ask me in the first place? Me, I'm sorry though. I said I want to help you in any way I can, but I'm just not sure with what else. Mother, that's okay, babe. Maybe I need to go to therapy or counseling or something. Me, yeah, Mom, I think that would be best. The conversation after that got off topic to what I should clean after I clean her bathrooms. So I think she's not going to ask me again because the topic of me having my own kids came up. If she can't get a baby herself, I plan on giving her a grandchild a bit earlier. I say about 4 to 6 years from now. I'd be 19 to 21, the same age she was when she had me. I also learned from her that if I want more kids, don't get an IUD. Those mess you up really bad apparently. And get the kids while you're still young enough. What would you do if your mom asked you to donate your eggs to her? Would you or not? Please let us know.
I kept waiting for Mom to Karen out, but she never did. Some of my faith in humanity has been reinstated.
Don't want to give me my last paycheck? Make that a double. This happened to me in spring of 2017. In 2016, I was unhappy at my current position with not very many hours and too much drama. I started shopping around for a new job. Got a few offers, nothing that I'd take, as the one I had allowed me to have weekends off so that I could work my second job. I eventually landed an interview with a brand new construction company. So I sat down, and who walks out? An acquaintance I work with on the weekends. We start chatting about this and that. It's a ski resort, so it was mostly about skiing, which tends to be very enthusiastic. So needless to say, I'm offered the job on the spot, as I have a real work reference right there. I took the job as it was exactly what I was looking for, with a work vehicle as a perk, an expense account. Turns out, that was me just spending my own money and getting reimbursed. One of many shady practices and red flags. Edit. This was supposed to be a company credit card, not a reimbursement account. Being American, I needed some health care. I ended up having to borrow money for a medical procedure. At the time, not realizing he offered this money on purpose so I couldn't leave. Or I could leave and actually owe him money, which I would have owed him a lot, so I'm stuck. About a year goes by, and I see one tradesman after another get hired on, then fired. It was a repeating pattern, so I knew my time was limited if I paid him back. I also knew I'd have a tough time getting paid, even if the amount earned was more than what I owed. So I began looking for another job. Found one easily enough. More perks, a way better reputable company. I knew I had time, so I planned my exit with only 3 days worked on the pay period. So when I received my direct deposit, I had only worked and was owed for 3 days. I could easily live with losing that money. So I go to the secretary and pay off my draw, get a receipt, and my balance is 0. Double check with the boss that we are square. Yes, he texts back, "Thank you for paying me back early. Thanks for the evidence." Boom, it all goes down in a crap show. I returned everything. Owner threatens to call the cops, says I owe him way more than I did, claims I broke everything in my vehicle. One of the beautiful things about a boss that is never on site is most everything is done by email or text. I send him screenshots of everything, including a picture of my 0 balance owed. Text back, I'll get my last check in the mail. Thanks for more evidence. 2 months go by. I called twice after a few weeks, got hung up on. Placed on hold, then hung up on. Oh, you want to hang up on me, huh? Let's see how the Department of Labor feels about it. File a wage claim with the Department of Labor. Lady straight up tells me there's not much she can do because all the boss has to do is dispute it, and then it will go to a hearing and be dragged out for possibly years over a few $100s. Email her everything. She compliments me on my thorough documentation and says I might have a case. She then tries to contact my former employer, gets hung up on, gets placed on hold. Then she got yelled at by the boss's girlfriend, who happened to be there filling in for the boss when he was in Mexico.
There is no way we owe that guy money. He was a real piece of work, and he owes us money, and I want to speak to your supervisor.
No hearing was needed. OP, here is your check. Please come by the Department of Labor to pick it up. I go to pick up my check. She then hands me a form and says that if I'm satisfied, check that box, but I'd like a more thorough investigation if one is warranted, and she strongly suggested that I check that box, so I did. 1 week later, I received another identical paycheck, which I had to go pick up. In the meantime, my friend who worked in the office started documenting everything from her side and had a similar experience when she quit. What a shocker. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay my half of our canceled wedding? My ex-fiance and I came from very different cultural backgrounds. Our families live on entirely different continents. I explicitly told him before we even got engaged that I always wanted a small, low-key wedding. I know that his cultures have huge, lavish weddings, and he told me that this is what he wants. So when we got engaged, we had a long conversation, which resulted in the compromise that we would have a big wedding in his home country, but drop some of the other aspects of his culture that I wasn't so comfortable with, or did not mesh well with my own culture. Regarding living situation and raising kids. For future kids, we did not have any currently. This was not a huge amount of customs. In fact, we just arranged to drop one and alter two, so they streamlined better with my own culture. We were both as happy as possible with this outcome. We began making booking, reservations, and paying deposits for our wedding. This was all out of his bank account. This is because we did not have citizenship in each other's countries, so it was far less complicated for everything to be paid from an account of the same country. The intention was that after we married, it would be much easier to get citizenship, and once citizenship was approved, we would merge our finances, and at this point it would not matter who had paid for the wedding, since all of our money would be together. 3 weeks before we were married, his mother and aunts got wind of one of the customs we had arranged to alter and lost it. Through conversations, they then found out about the other two, and eventually they threatened to disown him for being a bad son. They said I was cutting him off from his family, and that if that was what he wanted, they would make it easier for him. He begged me to change my mind, but I was firm, saying that this is what we decided together. I wasn't going to drop our agreement because his family didn't like it, when there are plenty of aspects my own family are uncomfortable with. Relationships are about compromise and communication, and ultimately, the first priority are the two people in the relationship, not their family. He told me if I wouldn't budge, then the wedding was off. I told him I had made my compromise. I still wanted to marry him under our original conditions, when we had spent a long time negotiating and originally felt were fair. He said he had changed his mind and did not want to marry me. After a few weeks, he contacted me, asking me to pay him back for half the money he was unable to get back from the deposits we paid. Since it was so close to the planned date that we canceled, it was not a small amount of money. However, since he was the one who called off the wedding, and even at this point, I would still marry him if he were to honor our original agreement, I don't think I'm obliged to pay. I told him this, and he is very unhappy, since now he believes it's my fault that he canceled for being unwilling to be flexible. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay half of our canceled wedding? Edit. It's come up a few times that if I were the one canceling the wedding, would I expect him to pay half the cost? I have replied to a few comments, but it's coming up enough that I figured I'd add something to the post. If I had been the one canceling without his approval, I would have expected to pay the cost alone. If it had been a mutual decision, I would have expected to share the cost. In the context of our relationship, it makes sense for him to take the hit for this. There have been other, albeit less significant, cancellations of events that have been covered by the person who canceled. For example, I was unable to make our planned engagement shoot and paid the cost for this. He was, before lockdown, unable to attend a prepaid dinner event, for which he covered the cost. We've always had a very balanced and understanding financial relationship. Edit 2. I'll copy and paste an earlier comment regarding the traditions my ex-fiancé compromised on. The traditions were regarding my role in the home as a wife and a mother, multi-generational households, and methods of raising kids and the role of a kid in the household. I don't feel comfortable providing more information than that because I don't wish to give any more evidence towards our nationalities. Also, as a few of you have guessed, English is not my first language. I tried to hide it, but I guess I still have improvements to make. All this is to say that I apologize for any mistakes in my posts or comments. Well, what do you think? Should OP have to pay half of the wedding cancellation costs or not? Please let us know.
No, and congrats, you dodged a bullet. Marry this boy and you'll spend the rest of your life bending to the will of your entitled in-laws.
Am I the jerk for telling my partner that my stepson spends too much time at our house and his mother needs to make more of an effort? Okay, so I've been dating this guy now for nearly 8 months. We've been living together for 2. Everything was going great. We're like best friends and have so much in common. His 4-year-old son is now proving to be a bit of a strain on our relationship, and I feel like I can't take him anywhere. His son throws tantrums, slams doors when he doesn't get what he wants, smashing the glass on my sister's door. When we buy him things, he says, "I don't want that," or "I don't like it." When we take him to a store, he picks up everything he sees and throws tantrums when he doesn't get them, spits his food out when we cook for him, tells us he doesn't like us, makes fun of my 7-year-old niece and makes her cry when he says things to her, as well as throwing her things off of our balcony, etc. He is a nightmare. Let me just add that his dad always has to buy him new toys every time he takes him out, which I told him he shouldn't. His mother is now treating us like a daycare. She had him for 1 day last week, and we're having him next week while she goes on holiday with her new boyfriend and goes out with her friends. My partner is now currently unemployed, and I'm the main breadwinner and struggling to support all 3 of us due to having to buy extra food and more gas and electric usage. I'm also woken up at 7 a.m. every Saturday and Sunday because my stepson wants the iPad charging or more games downloading when weekends are supposed to be my time after working all day Monday through Friday. I don't finish until 8 p.m. I told my partner this has to stop, and my place cannot be treated like a daycare. He needs to either A, take him out on weekends, or B, rotate it so that we only have him every other weekend. I feel like my life has been taken over as well as my apartment, as his son has his own bedroom and my things have been taken out of drawers and placed into plastic bags, which I'm now living out of. My partner is struggling being away from his son, and I feel horrible for giving him an ultimatum. But I feel like I need to look after myself too, as I never did this in my last relationship. I suffer from depression and anxiety, and I feel this whole situation is making things worse. Am I the jerk? Edit. I'm not trying to stop my partner from seeing his son. I am merely implying that the kid needs routine and equal time with both mom and dad on rotating days, in which my partner also agrees. I know they come as a package, and I'm willing to take this on, but neither parent is financially supporting this kid. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk in this case or not? Please let us know.
Oh, she's just not a good fit for this relationship. She'll be much better off if she finds a man who doesn't have kids.
Karen refused to accept that I was no longer with my previous company. At my first job, which was an online directory and blog, we had a client who was entitled to a free limited-time premium listing. This included a short write-up about her business on our website, which would then be hidden/unpublished after her premium list had expired, if she decided to not avail of the paid premium package. Basically, she was on a free trial. I was on the editorial team and first encountered her when I had to interview her for the write-up. My colleagues had advised me to be careful because she was rather irritable and rude, but I spoke to her in English. English is not the primary language in my country, and she was very nice to me. I wrote the article and everything was fine until her free premium listing expired. The account manager assigned to her updated her weekly on the status of her account and reminded her that the premium listing would soon expire. She yelled at my colleagues on the phone, saying that a business as large and successful as hers, with celebrity clientele, should automatically have a premium account whether she paid for it or not. Then she refused to speak to anyone except the general manager or me, an editorial assistant. As our GM was in a meeting outside at the time, the sales manager, account manager, and I took the call over speakerphone in a conference room. As soon as they informed her that I was now on the call, her tone changed and she was suddenly polite. She asked if we could keep the write-up that I worked so hard on published on the site, even if she would no longer be on the premium package. She then went on to say that surely someone with my educational background and who went to the same uni as she did would understand. I think this came up while we were making small talk during an event. I told her that it wasn't up to me to make the call as I was an editorial assistant, but that we would be happy to keep the write-up published for another month if she decided to purchase the premium package for the next month. Taking my cue from the sales manager, who was writing down some responses to help sell her the package, I then said something like, a successful entrepreneur like herself would understand that we needed to provide these premium services from that point for those with paid subscriptions. Finally, she agreed and paid for the next month to keep her account's premium status. I resigned shortly after that for unrelated reasons. 2 to 3 months later, I received a call from this client. Side note, we were not issued company phones at my first job, so I used my personal number to contact clients for phone interviews, and the company would just reimburse. I was surprised because I contacted all the clients I had worked with before I left to inform them about who would be handling their editorial needs upon my departure. She was complaining that her write-up had been taken down and that I had to do something about it. I informed her that I was no longer affiliated with the company, but that I would pass her concern along to my former colleagues. The call ended, and I contacted my former colleague to let her know about the client's concern. Guess what? The client had not paid for the premium package in the last 2 months. Several months go by, and one Sunday, I am awakened at 4 a.m. by my phone ringing. It's her again, and this time, she isn't at all polite. She was yelling at me, saying I didn't republish her article and that her listing had gone back to basic, free status. She said that the company should be grateful to have her listed because she had celebrity clientele and that she was a celebrity in the industry in her own right. She was infamous, not famous. I was done with her by now, so I repeated that I didn't work there anymore, and if she wanted a premium account, she should pay for it like everyone else. Then I said that if she contacted me again, I would sue her for harassment, and I hung up. It was an empty threat, but she never contacted me again. Years later, I found out that she had been blacklisted because she never paid for a year's worth of the premium listing. Karen tells me to stop the ride, so I did. The day I made a Karen cry. I work at an amusement park, and we have this ride called the Big Whale. This ride is 100% controlled by the operator. A couple of weeks ago, this woman and her friend came up to my ride, making fun of one of the kids that was on the ride. She was saying so many mean things about how I looked. Without even looking at her, I told her to stop, and this is how it went. Me: "You're literally talking about a 7-year-old. You need to stop, or you will not be allowed on the ride." Karen:
"But it's true. Look at them."
Me: "Don't disrespect our other guests, please. It's not okay." Karen's friend: "Stop, Karen, before you get us in trouble again." Karen:
"Whatever."
When the ride was finished, I start letting the next group of people on. I say, "Do not pull down on the bars. Pick any seat you'd like," to everyone as they walk in, since pulling on the bars can break the seats over time. I let a group of boys in before Karen's group, and they sat at the end seats. Karen marches over to the kids, yelling at them to get out of her seat and that she paid to sit at the end. Me: "Miss, please stop yelling at the kids, or you will be removed from the ride with no refund on your ticket." Karen:
"Don't tell me."
Karen's friend: "Stop it, Karen. Just sit in the middle." She complained the whole time, walking to the middle seats and then pulled down the bar. I was thinking it was time to get a manager over, but I didn't want to bother them with her. Once I got everyone seated, I closed all the seat bars. When I was checking the seats, Karen's one was on the loose side, so I pushed it in a little to make it tighter. Karen:
"You're trying to hurt me. First you left my seat open, now you're making it so I can't breathe."
I ignore her and keep checking seats. When I finally start the ride, I slowly rock it, and Karen is screaming to take her off. So I made the ride go faster, doing full circles now. Halfway during the ride, Karen screams,
"Stop the ride, you idiot!"
She wants me to stop it? Fine with me. I park the ride when it's at the top, like I do when closing, but keeping the ride on. The 6 others on the ride weren't scared that the ride had stopped. Karen started screaming, crying, and begging to be let down. The parents watching knew what Karen had said to their kids, and they knew what was going on and started laughing. After around 30 seconds, she's screaming for me to let her down still. So I do. On the fastest setting, I start the ride spinning full speed. I made the ride a little bit longer since all of the kids were having fun. Before I open the seats, I scream a warning. Me: "Wait for the bars to be fully open and stay above your head before getting up. Stay seated." Karen pushes it up and gets up, having the bar fall back down and hit her on her head. Her friend laughed at her, got her up, and walked her off the ride. Have you ever been on a roller coaster? If so, what was it called? Please let us know.
"I can't wait to go to Six Flags again." Dun 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 dun.
Chef refused customers' no mayo request. Chef at the restaurant I work at just hates it if anyone tries to change his almighty perfect food. I'm working lunch, and a girl and her parents come in. Girl orders the turkey sandwich with no mayo. The turkey sandwich is pretty good, and the chef roasts the turkey, then slices it thick. Of course, turkey isn't the most moist of foods, so I can understand that you would want a sauce or mayo. But this is a clear case of the customer is right. She wanted a turkey sandwich, no mayo. Just make the sandwich, right? I put in the order knowing the chef might say something about it, And sure enough, right away, he calls me back to the kitchen and says he won't make it. The sandwich will be too dry, so he can't make it without mayo. I argue, but he says buzz off. I asked the manager about it, but the chef has more power than him at this restaurant, so he just shrugs and tells me there's nothing he can do about it. So I guess there's nothing else to do. I go to the table and apologize profusely and let them know that the chef doesn't think it will be good. At this point, I'm fearing for the worst and brace myself. I then get a huge surprise because the dad goes, "Oh, darn. Some chefs are like that." He shakes his head but lets me know it's not my fault. The daughter didn't protest and just ordered something else. Thank God for anti-Karens. Aftermath. A few days later, I caught the owner and say that it's ridiculous, and he agrees, so he tells the chef to grant customers' requests. The chef got really upset. But so what? I'm hopefully not going to have to be here much longer. The owner mostly does what the chef says. The owner is also pretty stuck up, so maybe that's why they like each other so much. Edit. Not that it matters, but the chef does make the mayo. Someone pointed out that if he's such a great chef, why does his roast turkey turn out dry? It shouldn't need mayo, right? Wish I thought of this and argued that point. His response to egg allergies would have been that they have to order a dish without eggs and not get the turkey sandwich. I couldn't do mayo on the side either because he refused to alter the sandwich at all. The sandwich is sliced thick turkey, Swiss, dried cranberries, mixed greens, and mayo on bread he also makes. The cranberries kind of fall off, so I don't think it's some masterpiece, but the chef thinks all his dishes are perfect. He told all of the servers no modifications. Chips aren't that big of a deal. I was new to being a manager on duty, so I'm somewhat nervous, and on top of that, I usually work the night shift. Some of the customers we had were ones I'd never seen before. Here comes customer 1, change in hand, and 1 bag of chips. They hand me the chips, I scan them, and they freak out. Customer 1.
Excuse me? Your ad says those should have been $2.50. I'm not paying $3 for 1 bag. You need to adjust the price. That's false advertising. That price is outrageous.
Me. I'm sorry, ma'am. Can you show me where it says this? If it's true, I'll honor it. We go to the aisle where she claimed the ad was. The ad actually said 2 for $5. She points at the ad, grabs it off the shelf, and holds it about 5 inches from my face. I have a bit of a temper, but trying to be professional, I take the ad and explain. Me. Ma'am, this says 2 bags for $5. In order for the bag to cost $2.50, you need to buy 2. If you only buy 1, it's the regular price.
That's false advertising. How was I supposed to know that? There's nothing on here that says that. I want your manager. I know she'll fix it. She always fixes stuff like this.
Me. Yes, ma'am. I'll have her up here in a minute or two, I say, calling her up to the front to tell this woman that the ad isn't wrong. A minute or two goes by, but my manager isn't on her way yet. I call her again, and she says she's busy with a truck. I tell the customer my manager can't get away from the truck as nice as possible, realizing my situation. Her face immediately turns from patiently happy to unyielding rage. At this point, I just want to change the price so she'll leave, but we can't change prices for an ad that isn't wrong. She's staring me down, demands a price change or my manager, and is now holding up my line of 3 people. Here's the explosion. Me. Excuse me, ma'am. There are customers waiting behind you. Would you mind stepping to the side so I can help them? I'm sure manager 1 won't be much longer. Customer.
This is ridiculous. You're not even finished helping me. Hold on.
She pulls out her cell phone and calls customer 2, her husband.
Baby, these people aren't doing their job. I need to use the bathroom, and I need you to hold my place in line. Can you please step in here for a bit?
I guess he agreed because he walked in shortly after. She leaves, I assume to get manager 1 with a bathroom break as an excuse. Customer 2 stands there for a few minutes and asks me, "So, what part of your job are you not doing?" She's been a bit of a jerk lately, and I'd like to know. I explain how she wants a price change on something that wasn't advertised correctly. It's store policy to avoid doing so, and she won't take no for an answer / demanding my manager fix it for her. Customer 2. Well, how much is she short? 45 cents, 60 cents. If it's not that much of a difference, I'll pay it. You seem like a nice boy. Must be new too, since I've never seen you here before. Me. I've been here for almost 5 months now, and I usually work the night shift. I tell him as I'm ringing up the people behind him.
We've been short since someone quit, so I'm filling in during the day for now. Long story. He laughs, and then my store phone rings. Apparently, his wife is now demanding a price cut from my manager in the back. Manager called me to put her husband on the phone. I hand him the phone, turn to check a text message since my line was empty, and I heard some words that still make me laugh randomly when I think about them. Customer 2. Woman, if you don't get your butt up here and pay this boy for these chips, I'ma beat yo A until it's a color shrimp can't see. If I gotta go back there, the boy's getting a lick too. You're grown, so act like it. I'm laughing so hard, I dropped my phone. Luckily, she came up front. My manager came with her since the truck was checked in now. The husband hands me her chips again so I can scan them and tell her the price. She's so red at this point. I'm just waiting for her to start calling me names. She looks truly defeated that we couldn't knock off $1.11, I think, for some stupid chips. She walks to their car, but the husband stays. He gave me a $20 tip. Karen demands my college fund. I, 19 female, have an aunt, Amy, who's 38, who I love and she loves me dearly. It's never been explicitly stated, but between my sister, Kim, who's 17, and myself, I'm the favorite niece. I didn't really notice until I was around my early teens, but whenever I had an event, my aunt would always try to be there, while she was never there for anything my sister did. I got nicer presents, and there are pictures of me in her house, and she texts and calls me regularly. She barely acknowledges my sister, and I never knew why. One of the reasons why it took so long for me to notice was because whenever someone would mention something about the different treatment, our mom would just brush it off, and since Amy was my paternal aunt, I just accepted it. Fast forward to now, and my mom sent me down and asked me if I would be willing to go to a less expensive school so I could have extra money to share with Kim. Aunt Amy set up a fund for me and my 2 cousins, but didn't have a dime for Kim. She did this with Kim looking at me for an answer and got upset that I didn't give a definite yes. She accused me of not caring about her, just like Aunt Amy, and is refusing to speak to me until I give her half of the money. I thought that this was wildly unfair and asked my parents why they didn't have their own fund for Kim since Aunt Amy was taking care of me. They said that they did, but it wasn't as much as what Aunt Amy had for me. She's a smart woman who makes a lot of money and admitted that they had to dip into it to help pay for things when my dad wasn't working because of lockdown. I feel bad for Kim, but I don't want to sacrifice my future college experience for it. Am I really being so maliciously selfish? ETA. Hey everyone, sorry I haven't been responding. I had to run out and do some errands, but I wanted to address some questions and comments. 1. Growing up, I did notice that Aunt Amy had a bigger presence in my life, and she always had some excuse for not being in Kim's. Example, I have to work, I have prior commitments that I can't back out of, I'm sick, etc. 2. Yes, growing up, I do recall that every now and then, me, my cousins, or sister would ask why Aunt Amy treated 3/4 of us differently, and the adults would act like we were being ridiculous or just brush it off. I always took this as us kids just making stuff up and would trust that my parents, uncle, uncle's wife, or my paternal grandparents would step in and do something about it. Now that I'm older and starting to look back on things, I can now get a better understanding that it was indeed favoritism. 3. No, it has never crossed my mind that I may be my aunt's secret daughter. It also wouldn't explain why she spends time with me and my cousins but leaves out Kim. If all of the attention was just on me, I'd be more inclined to believe it. But for now, no. 4. I'm not going to rule it out 100%, but I'm going to say no to Kim and me having different dads. I'm older than her, and my parents were already married when I was born. I don't believe that Kim is an affair baby because it doesn't explain why only my aunt treats her differently. If my entire paternal side treated Kim differently, I would feel more inclined to believe it. 5. In regards to the fund itself, I've never actually seen it, but I know it's there because my aunt says it's there, and my twin cousins are already in college using it. I'm not too sure about the rules of the fund because I just trust my aunt, but I will look into it. 6. I'm not saying that I'm unwilling to share any of the money, I just don't want to give up half because I really want to go to my school of choice, which is out of state and will be more expensive. 7. One of the main reasons why I was so reluctant was because I felt put on the spot and was being cornered and pressured for an answer, which I resent. ETA 2. Even though I was out running errands, I've given it a lot of thought and think having a sit down with the adults in my life to figure this out may be what's best.
What would you do in this situation? Would you share your college fund with your sister or not? Please let us know.
Tell Aunt Amy I'm trying to go to college too. Where's Karen's fund?
Guest lies about bedbugs before revealing her true complaint. So I checked this older lady in 2 weeks ago, and it was a prolonged check-in to say the least. I came in at 3 p.m. and she arrived shortly after. She looked in distress when she came in and said she's been homeless for several days because her house burned down, and she asked if we had a room available, and we did. I quoted her the rate, and she said I didn't understand her. Her house had burned down, and she has nowhere to sleep because she's been homeless for several days. I understand what she's saying, and I tell her while we do have rooms ready and available, I cannot rent them out for free. She just shook her head for a while, and she picked up her phone and called her pastor. I could hear some of her conversation through the night window, and I think she mentioned something about being in a hotel for 3 days, and now she's homeless again. I used to work at a hotel that had a contract with the Red Cross, and people would come in if they had lost their home or something else like that had happened with an agent and fill out a form, and they'd get 3 days. So maybe that's what she was trying to say. She comes back to the window and hands me the phone, and her pastor says he'll put up for 1 night and he'll assemble the deacons to see if they can put her up for longer. I explained to her what I was told and that the pastor would be here in half an hour or so. She walked back to her vehicle, which she parked right in front of the office window, and she sat in her seat and reclined it with a very distressed look. The pastor shows up, and she waits for him to approach her car, and she begins to talk to him with an even more distressed look and begins to cry, etc. I imagine she was telling him the whole story, so I waited, and the pastor was very patient, and they both came back in about 15 minutes later. She has a walker now. She didn't have one before. And the pastor tells me the game plan again, and I check her in and finish that process, and he escorts her to her room and unloads her stuff for her. He seemed like a really nice guy, and while I did feel for the older woman, I couldn't give her a free room. That was my Friday, so I didn't know if the deacons decided to keep her here or not. So I come back a few days later, and lo, the deacons have decided to not only put her up for a week, but gave explicit instructions to continue charging their card on file every week until we get further instructions from them. I've always wondered about their church because I pass them every day I come to work, and while it's a Christian church, they have a picture that looks like a Buddha, and they have the word fellowship in their name, so I kind of get some interesting vibes. But from what I can tell, they're nice people. The only time I interacted with her during the first week was when she called to get her checkout date, at which time I explained to her what the deacons instructed us to do for her, and told her she only needed to come to the desk weekly for her keys to be reprogrammed. I've seen her walking about, driving off, etc. These last 2 weeks, and not once with a walker, and no one has heard any complaints from her about bed bugs until today. She will be Bug Lady. The phone rings. Me. Front desk, how may I help you? Bug Lady.
Yes, I'm in room this number, and I spoke to a guy earlier.
The previous shift was my GM. A middle-aged lady, so a lie.
Who said he would move me to a ground floor handicap accessible room with a tub and with a door parking.
Lie.
When can I move?
This was well past 3 p.m. And if we're going to move anyone, we try to do it before 12 p.m. so housekeeping can clean the room. Also, we had one room with everything she specified, and that room was reserved, and the reservation was made days ago, and my GM certainly wouldn't have offered her that room as it was already booked. So another lie. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am. I do not have a room available with those specifications. However, I do have standard double rooms on the second floor I can upgrade you to at no additional charge. Bug Lady.
I told the previous guy.
Lie.
I needed to move immediately because this room is full of bed bugs.
Highly suspicious, probably a lie.
And I'm bitten up all over my arms and legs.
Soon to be a confirmed lie. Me. I'm sorry to hear that, ma'am. What time did you speak to the clerk?
This morning, before I went to church.
If she had indeed spoken with the person about a room move that early, they certainly would have processed it ASAP, especially for that reason, because we are always keen on checking rooms for bed bugs and dealing with that pronto because that's a real business destroyer. I've gotten around 15 or so claims of bed bugs since I've been here at this property, and not once have we found any. Me. Ma'am, as I said before, while I do have standard rooms available now that I can move you to, they are all on the second floor. All of our ground floor rooms are taken this evening. Bug Lady.
Okay, let me try and figure this out.
Click. So I call my GM and ask her about it, and she confirms that she did not speak with the bug lady, nor did she promise her a room move. She told me to contact bug lady in half an hour if she didn't contact us by then and make sure she won't accept a second floor room. She also told me to inspect the room if she does accept the room move. It's nearly a half hour later, so I'm getting ready to head to Ladybug's room, but she walks into the lobby before I leave. Surprise, with a walker. Ladybug.
So, can I move into the room I asked about now?
Me. I'm sorry, ma'am, but as I said before, we do not have any rooms with those specifications. I do have standard rooms available on the second floor, which I can gladly move you into now. Ladybug.
Well, that's not going to work. I have health issues.
Me. I understand, ma'am. However, that's all we physically have available at this time. All of our ground floor rooms are currently rented out. Ladybug grumbles for a bit.
How about tomorrow? Can I move then?
Me. Yes, I can block a room tomorrow with those specifications. However, if you intend to stay and refuse a room on the second floor, you will have to stay in your current room tonight.
What about the bed bugs? I can't stand it. I'm itching everywhere and bitten up.
As she walked to the window, I noticed she did not have bedbug bites anywhere on her arms that I could see. I know what bedbug bites look like. I myself have been bitten up by them, and her arms looked perfectly fine. I repeat what I've told her like 6 times already, and she relents and agrees to stay in her current room for the night despite her agony.
Can I get a receipt for the room?
As the card isn't under her name, I cannot give her a receipt, which not surprisingly she complains about and offers me new lies.
No, I paid for the room. It was taken out of my bank.
Me. I'm sorry, ma'am. The only card information I have on file belongs to your church, so you will need to request a copy of the receipt from them. Alternatively, they can authorize us in writing to release the receipts to you, but you will have to contact them yourself and make that arrangement. Cleverly, she asks us what our weekly rates are for her room type to get that information without getting a receipt, which I give her because that's not private information. She then gets to her real complaint. Ladybug's mouth drops open.
You're charging me that much a week? And no one has been in to clean my room for 2 weeks now? That's not fair. You guys are…
She shakes her walker.
Ripping me off. My room is dirty. Why hasn't anyone been by to clean it yet?
I'm getting pretty annoyed at this point, and our housekeeping are not cleaning stayover rooms for the most obvious reason in the world. We do have an abundant supply of fresh towels, sheets, linens, etc., as well as a plentiful supply of cleaning solutions and brooms and Swiffer mops. While I did check her in for one night and not for the week stay, we are trained to clearly explain that housekeeping will not enter stayover rooms, but we have cleaning supplies and fresh linens at the desk. Most people understand that it's because of lockdown, and not only for our guest safety, but for our staff as well. Me. Ma'am, as I said, you are not paying for your room. Your church is. Housekeeping will not enter stayover rooms per our lockdown policies, which was clearly explained to you when you checked in. By completing the check-in process, you agreed to our policies. I have fresh linens and cleaning supplies that I can bring to your room, or you can move to a different room, as I've explained to you multiple times. She just glared at me for a bit, walked out without saying a word. This was around 6 p.m., and it's almost time for me to clock out, so I guess we'll see where that goes. In my experience, people toss around bed bugs as a go-to for a bevy of refund or a discount strategy. It's cliche, and it's usually a lie, and it was in this case. Apparently, Ladybug hasn't cleaned her room in weeks. I shudder at the thought of what housekeeping will find tomorrow. I don't suspect they'll find any bed bugs though. Update. So the day after Ladybug complained to me, she spoke to my manager around 7:30 a.m. who set her up in her ultra-specific room type for the following day, yesterday, and was told to come to the desk before 11 a.m. so that we can move her. This is standard, and we do not deviate from this policy because it gives housekeeping time to clean the room. Considering we've been selling out like crazy, and the last week she was clearly told that if she wasn't down by 11 a.m., we could not move her. In truth, we held it until 1 p.m. before we sold it. Those rooms have the best parking and go early. So I get on shift at 3 p.m. and go about my business checking people in, doing laundry, etc. And around 5:30 p.m., in walks Ladybug. She glares at me sideways.
Your manager said she saved a room for me. Can I move in it now?
Me, groaning. Hello, ma'am. My manager did update me on your situation, and unfortunately, that room is no longer available, as was explained to you. We asked you to come to the desk before 11 a.m. for the room move, and we did hold it until 1 p.m., at which point we released the reservation to sell the room. Ladybug.
Your manager made a reservation for today. Here's my confirmation number.
Holds up the confirmation printout with, "Please come into office by 11 a.m. for room move. The awesome manager." Boldly written on the page and circled. So we go in circles, and she keeps lying, saying she was told she could come in after 3 p.m. I pointed out the manager's note on the printout, and she acted like it was the first time she had seen it. Eventually, she declined to remain in her room for the night, but asked me to make a reservation for her the following day, today, for her specific room type, which I did, and printed out a confirmation letter and wrote the same instructions about 11 a.m., and I had her sign it this time. When I got on, my manager said she made a big deal about bed bugs and showed her the evidence. It was a small rash, about 1.5 inches wide and about 2 inches tall, and was certainly not bed bugs. She thought it might be irritation from medicine or something else. We recently switched our laundry providers and have had the new detergent for a few weeks, but have gotten no complaints about skin irritation, so she didn't think that was it. So I come in today expecting to hear a story about her move, but turns out she told her church we're rude to her and don't care that she's been in agony with bedbugs for weeks and that no one has been by to clean her room despite her pleas. She is so confused by why we're punishing her for her simple request she's been so patient with us about, etc. More lies, of course. She also said she doesn't trust the staff and doesn't want us in the room, and requested to get some volunteers from the church to help her pack her vehicle and apparently clean her mess. I walked by out of curiosity, and the window was cracked open, and I gagged under my mask and nearly threw up. It smelled like strong medical creams, powder deodorant, and spoiled food. There were 3 full 55-gallon trash bags outside her door, and they were loading up another. Her bed was full of junk. Not sure if she slept in that, but that might explain her rash. That was a few hours ago, and I'm sure Ladybug ordered her minions to find bed bugs, and since no one has come up and she hasn't phoned, I'm assuming there are no bugs of any kind. It seems to me she's one of those people that are used to getting what they ask for and have no problem behaving unethically to get what they want, including lying about lowly service people. We certainly weren't ignoring her requests nor punishing her. We tried to accommodate her requests despite her BS behavior. My general manager spent an hour on the phone with the church, reassuring them that she wasn't being mistreated and was far more diplomatic than I would have been. She's just glad she's gone tomorrow and doesn't want to deal with her anymore. I genuinely feel bad for the next property that will cater to Her Majesty the Ladybug, and hopefully she gets a new home soon so she can stay there. Police officer attempted to intimidate my patient, loses fight to physics. I'm a paramedic. A few days ago, we're coming back from a routine patient transfer when at an intersection about 4 blocks from the base, I notice a woman sitting on the side of the road with her arms wrapped around herself and her head down. I nudge my partner who's driving, and we flip on the lights, and I see her head come up real fast, and she looks terrified. I get out, and she relaxes when she sees the ambulance. After I approach, I notice bruising. She seems hesitant to get up off the curb and into the ambulance, so I decided that I would at least pull the cot out of the back and give her something a little more comfortable than concrete to sit on. Now a few important details. All the cots in my service are striker-powered cots. You've almost certainly seen them before. They're bright yellow with black handles and side panels. These cots have a motor and battery built in to allow them to be raised and lowered at the touch of a button instead of throwing out our backs having to physically lift the cot up after loading someone. They're usually paired with an automatic loading system built into the ambulance that lifts the cot up to the right height to be pushed inside and also secures the cot when loaded. There's a little red tab at the end of the track just inside the doors that you press down to free the cot and allow it to slide out. When you press this tab, it simply releases the cot, and it's up to you to keep it under control until it reaches the unload position and locks into place again. This can be problematic because these cots weigh about 125 pounds, about 55 kilograms. As soon as I hit the release tab for the cot, I hear lights and sirens behind me. It's a city police car, which is weird because we had not yet requested the police, and we were outside the city in the sheriff's department jurisdiction. We merely informed dispatch that we were stopping to check on a lady at such and such intersection. This lady says something along the lines of, "Oh God, he's here," and moves faster than me, seeing free food distributed at base. She dashes past me and pretty much hurls herself into the ambulance, sitting on the bench seat. The cop is approaching, and he's mad. I put two and two together and slam the ambulance doors shut. Let's call this officer Police Officer Steve, or POS for short. Steve.
Is that jerk? Is she in there?
Me. Who? Steve.
You know darn well who I'm talking about.
Me. You mean my patient? I'm afraid I haven't gotten a name yet. Steve.
Open those doors. I need to talk to her.
Me. You're not using my rig as an interview room. You can talk to her at the hospital. We go back and forth like this for a few minutes. My partner at some point came back to see what the holdup was, but overheard my stonewalling and went back to the cab to call our chief. I continue my routine of deny and delay until a pair of deputies, likely specifically requested for this by the chief, arrive. Oh, good. Now I have witnesses. See, we had stopped on an upwards incline. I had hit the release tab on the cot and it wanted to slide back. I had to close the doors so swiftly, I didn't bother pushing the cot back against the stops and locking it in place. Emboldened by the presence of the two deputies, he gets in my face.
Get out of my way, or I'm gonna have to charge you with obstruction.
Okay. I step out of his way and he opens the double doors. Between the cot, the monitor, and the jump bag, I'd say there was probably close to 160 pounds contained by those doors, all of which comes barreling out and hits Steve square in the chest. He goes backwards and falls on his butt. One of the deputies laughs aloud. The other walks up and kneels down beside the guy. He says, "Your shift captain is going to be here in 5. I wouldn't be here if I were you." Steve gathers himself up and scowls at me, then stomps off. There's a limited amount that I can say about the aftermath as the trial is not settled yet, but we all know how well charges stick to cops. The woman is now living elsewhere, the cop is still a cop, and I've been getting pulled over at least twice a week ever since then. But the video footage of him getting body checked by that cop remains one of the best things I have seen. Edit for clarification. Yes, the woman was/is married to Steve, and yes, he was the one responsible for this. Guy orders a bunch, then cancels most of it, wants to keep the discounts. Several years ago, I was the manager of one location for a national furniture retailer. We had people come in all the time for our sales and deals. We were always running one. As the manager, I also had the ability to take off a little bit extra. Depending on the items, I might even take an additional 25% off after the sale price. Way more if the item was something other than furniture. It was not possible on everything, but I knew my leeway and when to use it. The other thing we offered up all the time was to remove the delivery charge. So this man came in one day and is working with one of my employees. He's looking for a sofa and maybe some end tables. He picks out a nice sofa, and after the sale, it's about $4,000. End tables are another few hundred. Then he talks about how great our sale is. Apparently, my employee tells him if he buys more, we might get him a better deal. This sofa is something I did not have the ability to discount any further, as it was a loss leader and being sold well below what it could have sold for. So this guy decides to go all out and get a new bed, kitchen table and chairs, and a few other things. He's well over $10,000 at this point. So employee sits down to ring him up and calls me over to ask about additional discounts, and I let the guy know we have a great sale and he's already getting a great discount, but I'll waive the delivery fee. He asks for a bit more and I give him an extra 10%. It's all a negotiation. After the 10%, he says if we can take off a bit more, he will be able to afford a few more things. He mentions some pretty expensive stuff along with lamps and artwork. So we figure it in, and he gets free delivery plus 20% off. He's out the door, scheduled delivery for 3 weeks out, and puts it all on our store credit card. Best day the employee has had in a long time. A week goes by, and the guy calls to cancel the artwork and the lamps. It's not that strange for items to get canceled. They're mostly overpriced in furniture stores anyways. I take care of it for him. Since he used the store's credit card, he has paid us nothing. He will not be charged until 6 months after delivery. Another week goes by, and he has called us twice more to pare down the order, but the other manager was on duty and is new to the job. We are a few days from delivery, and the guy calls up to cancel everything but the sofa end tables on his order. It sucks for the sales guy, but it happens, and he handles it well enough. I buy him lunch. On the phone, I tell the customer I would be happy to cancel the items he requested, and I would still give him the free delivery. Never did he ask for an updated price. 6 months go by, and he finally looks at his bill. I'm the one that gets the call. It's just screaming from the start. He calls me a cheat and a liar and demands his money back. He also mentions that for all the stress this is causing him, he should refund it all. I know exactly who this is and why they are calling, but I ask him to explain it to me and play dumb a bit. This guy tells me how he canceled much of his order, but he didn't get the discounts he was promised. He was being charged $4,500, but since he got 20% off, it should have only been $3,600, and he wants his $900 plus more for messing up his credit score. Still playing a bit dumb, as if a light bulb is slowly warming up in my skull, I ask him to explain to me why he canceled all the other stuff. He then details how his plan all along was to rack up a huge bill and cancel it all, keeping the discounts. Now I drop the dumb act and lay it all out for him. Sir, I see the old order, and I'm the manager that was helping you that day. It appears as if there was never any discounts on the sofa or end tables, but you did cancel several items that were highly discounted.
I wanted discounts on the sofa. I was promised 20% off my order. You need to credit my account.
As a total, you did get 20%, but not equally on each item. Then he went full diva on me.
With as much as I spent, I deserve that discount. And if you don't give it to me, I will load up everything I got and drop it in your parking lot.
And fighting back a laugh, I had the privilege of telling him, correction, with what you were going to spend, you could have gotten that discount. With what you did spend, I was happy to extend free delivery to you. Additionally, you may return items within our 60-day return window, but your items were delivered well over 100 days ago. You can feel free to drop them anywhere, but you may be charged with littering. He ended the call after a stunned silence. He never called my store again. Karen loses it at Build-A-Bear. A while ago, I posted a story about my first Karen encounter at Build-A-Bear. For those of you who have never seen or been to a Build-A-Bear, it's the most awesome store in any mall. You pick out an unstuffed friend, fill it up, add extras like a scent or a sound, pick out clothing, name it, and take it home. Now, Build-A-Bear has a ton of licensed products, including The Nightmare Before Christmas. Every year around Halloween, people ask us if we have Jack Skellington or Sally because those are the two bears that get sent to stores. Another thing to note, since lockdown, inventory for our store and all the stores has been weird. Normally, we'd get a truck every single week, but with what's been going on, our schedule has been spotty. Now, when we get our Nightmare Before Christmas items, I notice something. I can't find Sally's dress. In fact, none of us can. Then we realize they didn't send us any of Sally's dresses. We call other stores, the same thing. No one in our area has Sally's dress. This isn't usually an issue because kids will dress up their bears in whatever. One kid got a bright pink unicorn and dressed it up as Darth Vader, so Sally doesn't have to have her dress. Well, according to Karen, she had to. It's the weekend, so we were fairly busy. This family comes in with a mom, 2 grandmas, and 2 kids. As usual, I think everything is fine until the girl wants Sally. My coworker, we'll call her Ava, is helping them when Karen asks about Sally's dress. Ava explains to her that we don't have Sally's dress in stock, nor do any of the other stores have it. And that is when Karen went from polite to just plain rude. Karen asks Ava why we don't have the dress, and again, Ava explains. Karen still doesn't understand why we didn't have the dress and starts demanding we try to get it for her. Ava, bless her soul, brings Karen over to the computer to show her why we can't just buy the dress. I'm on stuffing duty, and one of the kids, a boy who I'll call Thing 1, wants Jack. Again, I think the kid is fine until I realize he doesn't understand the concept of staying in line or going in order. To keep things simple, Build-A-Bear has an order. You pick out your friend, we ask if you want a sound, then you stuff. The reason for this is that the sound has to go into the bear before we stuff him. Now, I do remember one of my coworkers asking Thing 1 if he wanted a sound. The sound wasn't in the bear, so I assumed his parents said no. But then he mentions he wants a sound, so I have to get up, get Jack's sound, and then start again. While I'm doing this, the kid is running back and forth to his mom. This kid is like 6 or 7. He should know better than to run in a store, but whatever. Jack is stuffed, so I give it to the boy to hug. Then I tell him about the hearts. All friends get a felt heart, but you can get special hearts that beat like a real one. Thing 1 squeezes the special heart and says he wants that one. He begs the 2 grandmas and then runs over to his mom again. Now, had he been the only customer in the store, it'd be fine, but we have a fairly big line, and he was making the process longer. Thankfully, Thing 1 comes back and Karen vetoed the heart, So I finish up the bear. Story over, right? Nope. Karen is furious that we don't have Sally's dress. Keep in mind, Ava has explained to her many times that we cannot order the dress because it's part of the bundle. Karen apparently doesn't care. For the rest of her visit, she keeps making snide comments about the dress.
Why don't they have it? It shouldn't be that hard. I wish this store had the dress.
Blah, blah, blah. Then, when she comes over with her daughter, Thing 2, they hold up the line even more because they did the same thing Thing 1 did with the sound. And once again, Karen keeps making snide comments about the dress, saying how ridiculous it is that we don't have the dress. Not only was she making these comments, but she didn't smile once as I performed the heart ceremony and continued to talk about the dress throughout the store. When she left, we said, "Have a good day." She replied with,
I doubt it.
"Karen, please never come back to my Build-A-Bear, and I kinda hope you never find Sally's dress." My Karen sister is pregnant with my ex, and I'm supposed to be excited. Okay, so it's not that I, female 26, can't stand kids, but you'd think that if you spoke to my family. My parents and the rest of my family are going insane over my sister, Sophia's, pregnancy. It's dominating every discussion and every family get-together. I won't lie, this has been getting to me. Like, I'm not saying it's not a blessing, but oh my goodness, I'm bored of talking about baby showers, baby names, clothes, etc. So I just kind of turn off when it comes up now. I'm trying to be polite, but it's especially upsetting because the father of my future nephew or niece is the guy that I was, and might still be, I don't know anymore, really in love with. Luke was actually someone I dated first, back in my final year of university. Luke is also from my home city too, but we hadn't met prior. We dated a few months before he decided that we worked better as friends. This hurt, but I pushed through it, and we got a good friendship out of it. So when we graduated, we both went back home, and he spent pretty much the entire summer at ours because he has a difficult relationship with his father. That's when Luke and Sophia got together. Yet, despite all this history between Luke and I, no one in my family seems to think this whole experience might be a little strange for me. I won't lie, when I saw him kissing my sister, drunk, at a party, I kinda thought, you jerk, but it's okay, it won't last. Safe to say, it's lasted. But whatever, you know? You have to get over stuff like this, and I am, but I'm not a fountain of enthusiasm over it either. The drama comes when my mom asked me if I could plan the baby shower, and I told her, no, basically because I personally disagree with them trying to hold one during lockdown anyway, that I have a life outside of this whole thing and I'm busy. I didn't say it, but it also feels weird for me to be so involved with my feelings being the mess that they are. I just told her that she could do it if she wanted. It's her grandchild, and that makes more sense than me doing it. But my mom got upset with me and my tone and accused me of being unsupportive of my sister's happiness this whole time, and even being selfish for not wanting to be a part of it more. And I wasn't going to take that because I've tried really hard to be mature over this. I told her she was being overbearing with it, and not everyone has to do everything she wants all the time, and basically told her off for making a drama out of nothing. But now she's upset with me, and I'm starting to feel bad. Am I the jerk? My crazy ex showed up at the restaurant tonight and got arrested. I had a crazy partner well over a year ago. We broke up, restraining order, stopped hearing from him. Rumor was he'd gone to jail for something else. That part of my life was over and done with. Until tonight, when he showed up at my restaurant. He's quite a bit older than me, so had the advantage when I was in a bad place. It took a long time to convince myself he was 100% at fault. He showed up right in the middle of the dinner rush. Of course, he had to pick a night when a large group of girls I know from school were at a centrally located table, and the place isn't even that big to begin with. I spotted him right away. I think I saw him subconsciously before I even fully realized it because something felt chillingly off a few minutes before I first spotted him. We're still cutting back on staff to recoup lost income during lockdown, so I was the only one out on the floor. At first, I hoped maybe it was a coincidence that he didn't realize I worked there, so he would just eat and leave. But no, he was drunkenly asking random patrons where to find me by name almost immediately. I wanted so desperately to ignore it and have him just leave of his own accord because these girls from school were right there and I did not want to be part of a big scene. But it became evident that he was not lucid, maybe something stronger than just the booze, and his behavior was escalating fast, could not be ignored. I went back and let the owner know what was going on, but just didn't feel totally comfortable sharing the whole backstory with him. When things first turned sour in the relationship, news got out to my family and friends before I was ready to discuss it, and that fiasco is still an open sore. So I just told the owner a guy I used to know has shown up drunk and belligerent, and I know him to be violent, so I was going to call the police. The owner said no problem. He would call and even offered to tag me out and handle my tables until the guy left. But I didn't want to let this guy chase me out of my own job or stop me from living my life ever again, even just for a few minutes. And our owner is a much older guy and not so great health. The restaurant is one of the only places his wife lets him go after lockdown, and even still, he has to stay in his office when it's busy. I kept working, and the owner came and sat at the bar, keeping an eye out on my ex. He was calling out my name and saying some pretty rude things and trying to get within arm's reach. The owner is pretty paternal towards me. I've worked in this place a long time, and we're a pretty small staff, so he wasted no time chesting up to this guy and telling him, "Hey, the police have already been called. Do yourself a favor and get out." But my ex took that as a challenge and shoved this brittle old man hard. Patrons stepped in right away because it was so obviously not a fair fight between this big young guy and a little old man. But my ex can be scary, and understandably, no one was considering physically confronting him or getting between him and the owner or anything like that, so he was undeterred. He started to scream at me, demanding I leave with him, and he tried to run at me. The line cooks heard the commotion going on, and a couple came out to see what the trouble was. Most of our cooks are scrappy, but small, and I think despite their egos, they knew from one look they'd need reinforcements. It had only been about 5 to 10 minutes since we'd called the police, and in this busy city area, it takes them 20 minutes minimum to respond to anything that isn't imminently life-threatening. And all the owner had known to tell 911 at the time he called was we had a drunk and belligerent patron who might become violent. So we were definitely low on the priorities list. The line cooks went back and got one of my only real sort of work friends, coincidentally also the biggest guy on staff, Lenny. Lenny moonlights with an industrial moving company, so stays in superb shape, and is also super heavy, so he's become kind of our de facto security ever since everyone forgot how to act in a restaurant during lockdown. I really don't know too much about where he comes from, but I know it's very difficult to rattle him. So Lenny comes out and quickly assesses the situation. Someone tells him what my ex did to our poor sweet owner, and Lenny wastes no time. He tells this guy, "You're leaving. You're leaving on your own, or," with the silence implying what the alternative was. At this time, all Lenny knew was some drunk guy showed up and shoved our boss, who we're all fond of. So my ex told him some slurred drunken crap I couldn't really understand, but it was clear from his tone that it was not complimentary. Lenny went up to escort him out, and my ex freaks out and tries to break the nearest glass in reach to use it as a weapon. Fortunately, the nearest glassware was a thick beer mug, and he couldn't break it. Lenny shrugged this off as a sloppy drunk overestimating himself and tried to go in and get him in some kind of an armbar, but the owner warned him. "Hold off. Tamira says he gets violent. Be careful." Lenny didn't know who this was yet, so he was like, "This guy put his hands on her?" and was ready to charge him. But the owner's like, No, it's her old boyfriend." Lenny doesn't know the whole story with my ex. No one at work does, but he does know more than anyone else there, so instantly put together who he was dealing with. Without even hesitating, Lenny swung at him like a piñata. My ex's lights were out. He dropped onto the floor. A couple of patrons who had wanted to get involved but didn't see an opening were emboldened to step in now that my ex was unconscious and got on top of him to make sure he wouldn't be able to leap back up when he regained consciousness, which is good because he was back almost immediately. Still groggy, but more than able to have gotten up and retaliated had these men not stepped in. Someone else was behind the bar looking for something they could use to tie his hands together with. He found a roll of packing tape, and right in the nick of time, because my ex was quickly getting his strength back and really fighting the guys restraining him. Lenny wanted to go launch back in on him, but the owner was talking him down, insisting it wasn't worth it. The Good Samaritans were trying to tape up his hands and feet, but the roll was nearly out, so it wasn't doing much. I was watching the whole situation unfold from behind the bar, just mesmerized and paralyzed with fear, almost like an out-of-body experience. Because it sounds like a long time when describing it, but at real-life speed, this entire encounter from the time the owner came out to confront him couldn't have been more than 3 or 5 minutes. The police got there not too long after they had tried to tape him. It took 3 people to hold him down, one of whom got socked in the process, but they kept him secured until the cops got there. The police arrested him. My restraining order expired a year after it was granted, but I'm guessing they got him for the assaults or the disorderly conduct or something. And as they were cuffing him and going through the whole process, he was screaming that someone had assaulted him and he should be arrested as well. He was visibly injured, so the cops couldn't ignore that. They asked who had assaulted him, and he pointed at Lenny. One of the patrons who had helped restrain my ex started to speak up, saying, No, look, he did it in self-defense. This man was out of control. But his buddy cut him off and basically said, This guy was banged up when he walked in. I've been here the whole time and I didn't see anything. Then his friend, who was initially offering Lenny a cover of self-defense, realized the play and backtracked, saying, Yeah, we restrained him to defend ourselves, but nobody actually hit him. That other guy just works here. Which was a relief, because Lenny is a gentle giant, but he's also kind of a mystery, so for all I know, he has priors that would have made proving self-defense difficult. The police dragged my ex out and took him in. I went home at that point, but I learned from the owner at the end of service that they also impounded the motorcycle he showed up on. That was a nice bonus. So it was all very scary. I'm glad to know my coworkers and customers have my back, but I still think I'll take a couple days off. Ultimately, just feeling grateful that I'm finally in a place where the good people in my life far outnumber the bad. Have you ever had to deal with a crazy ex? If so, what did you do about them? Please let us know.
I would just sick Reddit boy on them. One bop with that big ol' head of his and it's lights out, boyo.
Entitled mom complains about hotel room, not realizing her husband had cheaped out. One day in January, I had a phone call. A man wanting to book a room for June. Quite far in advance. However, he wants to book for a Saturday night when there's an event in town, so we had only 2 rooms left. The cheapest room in the hotel, room 8. It's a tiny room with only a small double bed and a bathtub and no shower, 80 pounds per night. The most expensive room in the hotel, room 7. It's very spacious with a king-sized bed, a shower, and a jacuzzi-style tub, 120 pounds per night. So I told the man that we had only these 2 rooms left. Me. We have room 8 available, which is 80 pounds per night, or room 7, which is 120 pounds per night. Man. I think we had better have room 8. Me. Okay, but just to let you know, the reason room 8 is cheaper is because it's quite small. The bed is only a small double, and there's only a bath, no shower. Is that okay with you? Man. Yes, that'll have to do. I'm not paying 120 pounds a night. That's extortionate. So I booked him and his wife in for room 8. Months later, I had completely forgotten about all of this. I'm working the afternoon shift one day when a man and his wife check into room 8. About 10 minutes after I had checked them in, they storm downstairs to the front desk and don't look happy at all. The wife starts going off on me about how the room is tiny, the bed is tiny, and there's not even a shower. This is ridiculous. It's not what she expected at all. The man is nodding along fervently behind her, saying that it's unacceptable. He wants a better room for his lovely wife. She deserves better than this, etc. Me. I'm so sorry you're unsatisfied. Did you book over the phone? Him. Yes. Me. Okay, I'm not sure who booked you in, but all of our staff know that when they book a guest into room 8, they have to explain that it's a small room with only a bath. Did they not explain that to you? Him shouting. No, they didn't. I asked for a superior room. Only the best for my wife. Not this pathetic little room. I can't believe you put us in here. It's just not acceptable. We deserve a discount. Yada yada yada. Unfortunately, by this point, all the other rooms were fully booked, so they had no choice but to stay in room 8. They opted to stay because all of the other hotels in town were full, but they were both fuming at me. They went back up to their rooms, and I went back into the office and went on the booking system. I looked at the booking and found the note that I had made months ago. That's when it all came flooding back to me. When they came down for dinner, I had the pleasure of serving them at the bar. They still didn't look happy. Me. I've had a look through our records, and I was the one who booked your room back in January. Him. Oh, did you? Me. Yes, I just found the note I made on your booking. At the time, I offered you our basic room or our luxury room because they were the only 2 available. Do you remember that, sir? Him. Silence. Me. I explained to you that room 8 was quite small and had no shower, whereas room 7 was spacious with a king-size bed, a shower, and a jacuzzi bath. But you specifically chose the basic room over our luxury room. You said you weren't willing to pay the extra 40 pounds. You called it extortionate. Do you remember now? Him and his wife are both silent, but the wife is staring daggers at her husband. Clearly, the man has been telling me off to his wife, claiming that he asked for a luxury room when really he cheaped out on purpose. I leave the bar to go and do something else after serving them, and I can hear her chewing him out all the way over from the office. When I returned to serve them their food, she was as sweet as pie to me and apologetic. He didn't say another word to me for their entire visit. He was definitely in the doghouse. Justice. Edit. To all the people insinuating I'm a horrible person for ruining this guest's experience by not letting him walk all over me, kindly sit and swivel. I'm a human, not a doormat. He messed up his own day by lying to his wife and blaming me. Throw more fuel on the fire? Got it. When I was younger, my cousins and I would always go and hang out at each other's places. All of our parents were in very rural areas. To give you an idea of how rural, our nearest neighbor was over a mile away. For my cousin, this was elevated to about 10 miles. We did what any other teens would do in the woods, whatever we wanted to. For this story, I was at my cousin's place and we were having a bonfire. It was a little damp as it had just rained, but his dad was fairly stubborn and had decided that he was going to burn some brush regardless of how long it was going to take him, and that we, my cousin and I, were just there to help him. Neither of us wanted to be out there, but my uncle insisted that we couldn't do anything else until all the brush was burned, and we helped him put away all of his equipment, chainsaw, log splitter, etc. He tried to start the fire, and after about 30 minutes, finally got it to start. We tended the fire and got it to where it wasn't going to go out before he decided to leave us in charge before going to get some more brush. To keep the fire manageable, we had the foresight to separate all of the brush in that area into multiple separate piles, no bigger than about 2 feet high and about 3 feet wide. As he didn't want the fire to go out, he told us that if it started to burn down, to add more fuel to the fire to keep it going. As he walked away, my cousin eyed the 10-gallon red plastic container full of gasoline before returning a wicked little grin at me. I just smiled back because naive little me had no clue what he was thinking. Malicious compliance. After a little while, the fire had burned down a little to where we could add more branches, but instead, my cousin grabbed the whole canister of gas and chucked it, more like dropped it, into the middle of the fire. I stared wide-eyed as my cousin came back and said, "We should back up." Me, "What are you, cousin?" He said to add more fuel, so I did. I looked at the canister, still sealed, and watched as the flames danced as they ignited the residual gasoline around the pour spot. Part of me thought, I should pull that out, but another part of me thought, this is going to be awesome. As I tried to figure out what to do, I heard the screen door to the house slam shut and realized my cousin had left me. I thought, oh no, if my uncle comes back, he's going to blame me for this. I didn't have to think about it for long. I heard the screen door slam again, and my cousin emerged from the house with his .22. He walked up next to me, aimed at the canister, and said, "This is going to be amazing." The bullet flew and pierced the canister on the highest part of it to allow the fumes to escape. For those who have never seen a fireball that comes from an exploding canister of gasoline, it is absolutely glorious for those who are standing back far enough, which we were not. I was only able to watch for a very minimal amount of time before the heat and force of the blast caused me to step back and trip over the chainsaw and land smack on my back in a pile of brush. My cousin ended up tripping and rolling down the hill about 30 feet before he ended up in a lake at the bottom. It was hard to tell how high the fireball made it, but it was at least 100 feet, because no sooner did my cousin drag his soaking wet self back up to the top of the hill than his dad, my uncle, flew down the little trail on the quad screaming at us. Uncle, "What the heck was that?" Cousin, "I threw on more fuel like you told me to," pointing to the exploded and still on fire shrapnel that used to be the gasoline canister. Uncle, "I didn't tell you to use gasoline." Cousin, "You said fuel. I used fuel." Uncle, "Get the heck out of here, both of you." So we went inside. My cousin changed. I pulled the prickles out of my clothes and we started playing video games. Apparently, my uncle had called my grandparents to come get me though, because no longer than an hour had passed after we blew up the fire, then they showed up to take me home. On the way home, my grandpa asked how it was. I said cool. and he told me in no uncertain terms that I was never to do that at his place. Fallout. I was never allowed back over to their house ever again. Have you ever done something really stupid that turned out to be really fun? Please let us know. Pool guy only wants to maintain the water? Fine, I'll give you water to maintain. So my fiance and I have a pool company that comes to our house once a week. He happens to be related to my fiance's best friend, but we still pay him his rate because we wanted to support his business. He's been maintaining our pool for, I want to say, a little over a year now, and we haven't had any issues. He actually helped us get the parts we needed to fix a lot of things in our pool for just above at cost, and he's been an all-around awesome guy. I'm not sure what's changed, but the last couple of months, I've noticed if I don't sit outside and converse with him, he generally will come in, skim the pool, empty the basket, throw some chlorine tabs in the float, and leave in a matter of minutes. And this would be fine. However, now that we're getting deeper into the hot summer, we've noticed a slow growth of black algae growing in some of the cracks and along the tile. Granted, our pool is a little on the older side and is definitely overdue for a resurfacing, but the algae can easily be scrubbed off when it starts to get noticed. You would think that the pool guy would do this at some point. He is not. I've noticed these last couple of months, he's been doing the absolute bare minimum to maintain the water. And because of the algae, by the 6th day after, the pool is already starting to get green and cloudy. And then he just puts more chlorine in it to clear the water, and then goes on his way. Well, my daughter's birthday is coming up soon, and we intend to have a pool party. But even at its clearest, the pool had so much black algae built up that neither of the kids even want to swim in it anymore. So with 2 more pool guy days to go before the party, I decide the day beforehand to scrub the absolute heck out of the tiles, the walls, and the cracks, which lifts it all to the surface and floats it to the water. About 30 minutes in, the water is so green, gross, and cloudy, you can't even see the bottom. By the next day, which was yesterday when he was scheduled to come do his weekly drop-by, the pool almost looked like a swamp. I watched him through the window when he arrived and saw the absolute disappointment as he shook his head and began to skim the surface, which I had already done, so there wasn't much, and then proceeded to dump in the chemicals. The amount of different chemicals I watched him pour in the water cost him more than what we pay him for the whole month. And now here I am the next morning, and I'm sitting happily beside the clear pool, drinking my coffee, planning where I'm going to put the decorations for the party. Am I the jerk for being rude and mean at a wedding and leaving early? I was asked to be a member of the wedding party. Despite this, I was the only person, not only in the wedding party, but also at the ceremony, who wasn't allowed to have a +1. This was an outdoor wedding with unlimited seating, and these people don't give a hoot about lockdown, so it wasn't about that. I was told it was because my relationship wasn't serious enough, despite us being together for a year. That only engaged or married couples were invited, and that they didn't want some random guy in their wedding pictures who I might not even be with later in the future. They don't want to have to look at some random guy in their pictures, even though he wouldn't have been in any of the posed pictures at all, maybe just in the background of crowd shots. There have been no conflicts between them and my boyfriend, and he's a nice and mild-mannered guy who gets along with everyone, so I don't think it was about him personally. I get to the ceremony and find out that literally everyone has a +1, not just married couples, but there are couples there who have been dating for less time than me. This is when I started feeling surly. I smiled and played my part during the ceremony, but inside I was very surly and angry. We then got to the reception, which had way more people than the ceremony. This is where all the more distant friends were invited, and everyone there had a +1. I was literally placed at a table as the one single person, and everyone else at the table was a couple. Some at the table were other members of the wedding party, but others were random distant acquaintances. People started asking me where my boyfriend was, and I said I was told he wasn't invited. They asked why, and I said I had no idea. This is when I started letting my surliness show and started acting rude and mean because I was humiliated. And then I was brought into conversation with the couple's male friend, Dean. I was previously told that Dean has a crush on me, and I made it clear I wouldn't be interested, even if I were single. Even after that, he kept trying to message me, and I ignored him. But now, the people who brought me into conversation with Dean were like standing around staring at us and giggling behind their backs, like they thought they were Cupid matchmakers. Dean was absolutely a participant in this. I was meaner to Dean than I've ever been to anyone in my entire life. I was as fully rude as I've ever wanted to be when being the target of someone's romantic interest unwantedly. It's true, I don't really know if I was being set up, but I was already furious before that happened. Everyone was silent and awkward. I went back and finished my meal, and as soon as I was done, picked up my purse and left, and went straight to my boyfriend's house, skipping most of the reception, cake cutting, speeches, and everything. I'm now being told by the couple that they're hurt and confused as to why I left so early. I haven't replied. Am I the jerk for not telling my family which of my kids is biologically mine? I have 2 kids, Clark and Kent. While they have the same father, only one of them is biologically my kid. They were born within 6 months of each other. The boys are currently 6, and for various reasons, I have full custody of both of them. I didn't speak to anyone in my family for several years, and we got back in touch in 2019. Due to the boys' ages, my family know I couldn't have carried both, unless I have the gestation period of a hamster or the longest labor ever. I've explained to them how this all came to be, but in my explanation, I neglected to tell them which was my biological kid. Due to my ex having a type, the other woman looked enough like me that the boys could pass for twins. Same dark hair, blue eyes, pale skin, and both cleft chins and dimples. My brother jokes that they look like tiny supermen. People who know them refer to them as twins because aside from a few minor differences, they're practically identical. Frankly, if they were closer in age and I'd had full custody of both from the time they were born, I suspect I would have mixed them up a lot as babies. Shortly before Clark's birthday last year, my mom asked if she could see Clark's birth certificate. I asked why, and she said she wanted to know the exact time he was born, so I told her. She asked if she could see the certificate anyway. I asked why. She said she just wanted to check. I said I'm his mother. I know when he was born. Then she asked the same thing about Kent, and we went through the same conversation all over again. Mom eventually admitted that she just wanted to see the birth mother's name on each certificate, which isn't even how that works, and I told her as much. This led to an argument where my stance was that I'm their mother. Biology is irrelevant. Mom says if biology is irrelevant, then it's not a big deal to tell her which of them is biologically mine. I said if she's so hung up on biology, then clearly it's a big deal to her, and I don't want it to be a big deal, especially as the boys themselves don't know. Mom feels this is incredibly selfish, narcissistic, and overall wrong. She feels that if biology isn't such a big issue, then I should have no problem telling her whether Clark or Kent is my biological son, and that accusing her of potential favoritism or something similar with her bio grandkid is an unfair judgment with no actual reasoning to it. My boyfriend agrees that I shouldn't tell anyone, at least until my sons have decided for themselves if they want to know and want other people to know. But my entire family agrees with Mom that I'm being unreasonably selfish and that my actions now are more likely to cause issues than Mom's potential actions later. Am I in the wrong? Well, what do you think? Should OP tell her mom or not? Please let us know.
I think Grandma should mind her own business, to be honest.
Am I the jerk for not reassuring my boyfriend I was fine after he didn't help me after my car broke down by his house? I was driving to the store and my car crapped out on me. Turns out the alternator failed and the engine stalled out. I pulled over to the side of a remote road. It was cold and I wasn't dressed for the weather without the car's heater. Dumb of me to not wear a warmer coat or think to put a blanket in my car for the winter just in case, but it was supposed to be a quick errand. I called my boyfriend who lived very close to where I was broken down and he didn't pick up. I texted him saying I was broken down and I needed a ride. Could he help? He said no, he had a friend visiting. I said it was freezing cold and I needed to get out of the cold fast because the car heater was broken too. He said, "Can't you ask a friend? This is a bad time." I called a friend who was 35 minutes away and he got on the road right away, and we made plans to have his brother, who works for a towing company, get it for cheap the next day as a favor. We hung out for a few hours and then I went to bed early. I accidentally left my phone in his car, so when he left, he took it along. The next morning, I couldn't find my phone and sent an email to my friend to ask if he had seen it. He replied and said he found it in his car and he could bring it back on the weekend. I thanked him and apologized for making him make the trip twice. Anyway, I worked through the day and only checked my social media after the workday. I saw some panicked messages from my boyfriend on my Facebook asking what had happened. I didn't answer his text for 24 hours after the last thing I sent was, "Can you please come pick me up? It's freezing cold and I need to get out of the cold fast. Car heater is broken." And I wasn't picking up my phone or answering texts or social media messages. Then he went out for a drive and found my car abandoned in the dirt off the side of the road. He was convinced I had been ignoring him to spite him for not leaving right away to get me. He hadn't realized how serious it was, and he'd expected if I had had trouble getting a friend to help, I'd call him and tell him I didn't have another option. I said I wasn't being petty. I was just trying to deal with my own crap when my car crapped out on me, and I honestly wasn't thinking about him at all after he brushed me off for asking for help. He said that I was stupid for not thinking that he'd be worried to be ghosted for a day after saying I was in trouble. Am I the jerk for not telling my boyfriend I was okay after he didn't want to help me after my car crapped out? Edit. I broke things off. Seriously, thank you to everyone who commented and told me this crap wasn't normal or okay. I thought I'd feel bad about ending things because I really wanted things to work out, but honestly, I feel like that's a huge weight off of my shoulders. My Karen sister thinks she owns my house. My siblings and I inherited money from our grandfather when he passed. Our dad was the administrator and he was not super strict and let us have access to it for practical things. I convinced my dad to let me have some of it early to buy a condo. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and the price was amazing and very close to the university. After I bought it, my 2 best friends moved in with me and paid rent, and we lived there until we graduated grad school. I ended up getting married and moved away. I have rented it on and off, and family has lived there as well while attending university. I have 3 full siblings, and 2 blew through the money in a few years and made very poor decisions. When lockdown happened, my brother and sister-in-law went through some very hard times. They asked me if they could move into the condo until they could get back on their feet and save money. I agreed, but told them my rules. The master bedroom was mine, and I could show up at any time. I did not want to get any emails from the HOA. We were good. I'm now getting divorced and share 50-50 custody with my ex. I have the option of working remotely or going into the office. 1 week a month when my daughter is with her dad, I've been flying back home and staying at the condo. I have felt a strong desire to be with my friends and want to spend more time with my family. Here's where the issue is. I sometimes drop in last minute. On a whim, I catch a direct flight back home and just show up. This has started annoying my sister-in-law. She gets even more upset when I invite my friends over and we're drinking in the living room and acting like college kids again. It came to a head last weekend where she confronted me about how inconsiderate I was. She said it was rude not to give notice of when I was showing up and asked that I let her know a week in advance. She also said that she did not want my friends hanging out more than once a week and they needed to be gone by 11 p.m. Here is where I might be the jerk. At first I laughed and then I got mad. I ripped into her and asked her who the heck she thought she was. I reminded her that I was the owner of the condo and she had absolutely no authority to be laying out rules, especially when she was not paying for crap. I told her if she ever came at me like that again, I would toss her out on her butt, and if my brother felt the same way, he could leave with her. My brother confronted me and told me that yes, the place was mine and they were guests, but as a courtesy, I could give them some notice, and having my friends over was also inconsiderate without notice. I told him no and no, and he called me a jerk. My friends and I are not loud. Sister-in-law is very religious and is upset because we drink and have very adult conversations that offend her. So Reddit, judge me. Am I the jerk? Edit for info. Brother and sister-in-law do not pay any of the bills. They are in my name. They have lived in the condo since April of 2020. I would have to serve them with a notice to vacate if they refuse to leave on their own. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or sister-in-law? Please let us know.
Yowza, I think someone needs to get OP some milk.
Entitled Mom tries to steal my pre-selected airline seat. So this happened about 2 years ago, but I just went on a flight recently and was reminded of it. My family had an event that we had to go to that was across the country. A lot of my family, my mom, dad, sister, and several aunts and uncles and cousins had already flown out the week before, but I had work and my daughter had preschool, so we stayed behind and were going to fly separately on the weekend. My aunt had a daughter that she couldn't bring when she went, so she asked that I bring her with me when I and my daughter flew. My aunt's daughter, Grace, was almost 2, but she was nonverbal so far, and my daughter, Elori, was a little over 3. I was 18. Since I was flying with 2 toddlers, I wanted to make sure that we had a row to ourselves. I was planning on having Elori in the window, Grace in the middle, and me in the aisle. So I went the slightly more expensive option of choosing pre-selected seats. We got to be in priority boarding, so we boarded before a lot of other passengers. We had checked our suitcases, so I just had my backpack with all the things I would need: jacket, food, toys, my electronics, and a diaper bag. So I had Grace strapped to my front, my backpack on my back, the diaper bag in one hand, and Lori's hand in my other. I was saddled up. I got on the plane with no fuss from the girls, but when I got to our designated seats, yep, you guessed it, an entitled mom and her son, probably about 6 or 7, were sitting in our row. So our convo went a little like this. Me: "Excuse me, these are our seats. We pre-selected them." Entitled mom:
I'm sorry, honey, but it's open seating, and I got here first. You can go find another seat.
Me: "No, this is my row. I pre-selected it online and paid extra for it." I showed her my ticket. Entitled mom:
Honey, that's not how it works on this airline, and unaccompanied minors need to fly next to the flight attendant anyways.
Me, getting exasperated and exhausted, still holding a baby and a backpack: "I'm an adult, and this is my daughter. Please move, or I will need to get the flight attendant."
Go ahead, she will tell you the same thing.
So of course I go get a flight attendant and explain the situation and show her my ticket. Enter flight attendant: "Ma'am, she did in fact pre-select this row, so I'm gonna need you to move to another seat." Entitled mom:
Excuse me?
She looks genuinely shocked. Flight attendant: "Please move to another seat. We have plenty." Gestures to the back where there are literally still whole rows available. Entitled mom:
No, we got here first, and my son needs to be over the wing.
Flight attendant looks slightly annoyed at this, but keeps her customer service voice: "Why don't I help you find another seat? I'm sure your son will be fine."
No, I'm staying in this seat because I got here first.
At this point, Lori was getting antsy standing in one place, and flight attendant noticed. "Sweetie, why don't you take a seat right there while I sort this out? I'll bring you an apple juice in a little bit." Lori sat down in a seat on the other side of the row, the one empty seat in the aisle of the plane that was filling up. Flight attendant tells entitled mom: "We're going to have to remove you from the aircraft if you don't move to another seat." Entitled mom finally gets up at this point and drags her kid behind her, pushing past us, saying angrily at me and the girls,
You teenagers are so entitled.
Flight attendant apologizes to me and helps me settle the girls and my things into our row. Flight attendant: "Wonderful job dealing, by the way. You seem like a very responsible big sister." Me: "Actually, the older one is my daughter. The younger is my cousin." Flight attendant smiles: "Then you are a very good mother. I'll get you an apple juice for the kids. Just make sure you stow it before we take off. Let me know if there's anything else I can do to help you." Mailman wasn't trying to deliver my packages. I got revenge. For context, in my country, if your package gets sent through the National Post Service, you're basically done for. It takes 200 years and they never actually deliver it. I don't know how it is in other countries, but here they're supposed to ring the doorbell if the package doesn't fit the mailbox, and if you don't answer, they leave a notice and you have to go pick it up all the way at the post office. The problem is that my mailman doesn't even try to deliver them. He just leaves the notice without even ringing the doorbell and leaves. I've had to pick up nearly every package I've ordered because of that. Well, this time it was my last straw. I was obviously home because of lockdown. Suddenly I received a call that immediately hung up. It was so fast that my phone didn't even ring, just showed up as a missed call. No doorbell, no nothing. I suspected it was the mailman and ran to the door only to find him inside the truck, looking straight at me before driving off. Well, I was upset and I called the post office to file a complaint. I explained the situation and the lady told me that I couldn't file a complaint because they are only instructed to ring the doorbell and calling is optional, and I couldn't prove that he didn't ring it. At first, I just avoided using them again at all costs, but the other day I ordered something and chose a delivery company from the ones listed on the website. Apparently, that company hires the National Post Service to deliver for them here. When I found out, I basically stalked the tracking info for days. It was about 2 weeks late. Until one day, late at night, it said it had arrived in my country, which usually means that the next day it's going to be delivered. The next day, I woke up at 7 a.m. to check. My suspicions were correct. It said, out for delivery. I quickly grabbed something to eat, got in my car, and parked right outside of my house. Then I waited and waited and waited. 6 hours in total, until I finally see the post truck pulling over. I grabbed my phone to record and watched as the mailman opened the door, already with a notice in his hand, and slid it inside my mailbox and turned around. I got out of the car and said, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" He didn't even look at me and said, "Just delivering packages, miss." Then I stood there as that jerk grabbed his phone to call me and quickly hung up. I smiled as I took my phone out of my pocket and sarcastically stated, "Oh, bummer, you didn't even give time to reach for the phone." He literally turned white. He couldn't even speak. I continued, "Now, can you give me my package, please?" He quickly opened the truck, almost tripped, and took out my package. "See, wasn't that easier than your whole scheme?" He finally manages to say, "Sorry, miss." I turned around and left. He probably thought he got lucky I didn't say anything else, but little did he know that I sent the video to the post office via email attached to my complaint. Well, let's just say I got a new mailman. This one tries to leave 1 second after ringing the doorbell, but at least he rings. Edit. 1. Everyone saying I should just install a camera. That would work, yes, but then he would leave with the package and I would have to go pick it up. I wanted my package that day. 2. For everyone saying I got him fired, and that's not something to brag about. Firstly, as much as it isn't his fault and he's just following orders, he was not nice or professional. He literally saw me at the door one time and drove away while looking at me. Secondly, we don't even know if he was actually fired. I might be wrong, but I think here the regular mail carriers are considered public employees, which means they are rarely fired, just transferred to a different job. Have you ever had any issues with the post office? If so, what happened? Please let us know.
Oh, don't even get me started on the US Postal Service. Avoid them at all costs.
Just a little height difference. Characters: Mom, Dad, and Uncle Ernie. The story. I can remember this event clearly. The family laughed about this for years. The year was 1985. Dad just brought home a brand new car, a 1985 Capri Classic. Mom and Dad picked it out together weeks ago, and he just picked it up from the dealership. We went for a drive so they could show off the new car to us kids and some close friends who were excited for my parents. Dad had an old half-ton he drove to work and back, so the car was left with Mom most days. Some days she drove it, but others she didn't need to go anywhere, so it just sat in the driveway. Now here I will mention there's a huge height difference between Mom and Dad. Dad was roughly 198 centimeters, 6'5", and Mom was roughly 154 centimeters, 5'2". Needless to say, the driver's seat needed to be moved for each of them. Dad got petty one day and pulled one of his little pranks on Mom. He took the car to work one day, which was not unusual if he didn't feel like driving his truck. While he had it at work, he welded the driver's seat where he felt comfortable and never said a thing to Mom. Probably 2 or 3 days later, Mom had to go to a doctor's appointment or something like that. When she got in the car and she tried adjusting the seat, it didn't budge. She came in the house and asked me to go look to see if I could figure out what was wrong. As soon as I looked at the track where the seat should slide, I see the weld. I pointed it out to Mom. When Mom got mad, she always looked like she just ate 30 lemons and she gets quiet. When she went quiet when I was a kid, I knew it was about to go down. She went into her bedroom and grabbed her pillows to put behind her so she could reach the pedals. By the time she got to the appointment, she had the most sour look on her face. We left the appointment and I thought we would be heading home, but we started in a different direction. I didn't dare ask where. I just sat back for the ride and shut my mouth. After a few kilometers, I realized we were heading to Uncle Ernie's place. This is where we brought Dad's work truck to get fixed and Mom's uncle. Mom got out of the car and showed Uncle Ernie where Dad welded the seat all the way back. He kind of giggled and asked what she wanted him to do about it. Mom told him to cut off the gas and brake pedals and weld something on them so her feet can reach the pedals with the seat all the way back. After some time, measurements and welding, it was done and we went home. It wasn't until the next night when Dad was heading to the Legion like he did most nights. Within a minute, he came bursting through the doors, ripping about the pedals. Mom just looked at him with a look of amusement, which made him angrier. He asked her where she got the idea to mess around with a brand new car. Again, with the same look as before, she answered, "If you didn't weld the seat to your position, but I drive the car more and can't reach the pedals, what am I supposed to do? Now, if you want to take your truck tonight, you can take the car tomorrow and remove the welding from the seat first, so it moves right. Then you can take the extensions off of the pedals. This is exactly what he did too. Do you think he would learn his lesson? Not my dad. He always said, "I am not stubborn, and I will fight to the death to prove it." Call the hotel directly, please. So last night, this guy comes in with his whole family. There are 7 of them. He was rude to begin with, but I asked for his name, ID, card, and confirmed that he had 2 reservations, one with a king bed and one with 2 queens. He said yes. They are there for 8 nights, which is insane for this property, as that will run you close to $3,000 for one room. He asks if they can have connecting rooms. I told him I don't have any more available, and unfortunately, the king bed I have is 1 floor down from the 2 queen rooms. This was our first problem. He started getting angry because they are a family and need to be next door or connecting. That always blows my mind too. Why would you not call and confirm these kinds of requests before checking in at 9 p.m. on a Friday night in a downtown hotel in a major city? Whatever. I told him we could move them sometime this week to be closer, but that these were the only rooms I have right now because we're sold out tonight and tomorrow. He said it was fine, so I processed both check-ins and handed him the keys for both rooms. Me. So this is the room with 2 queen beds, and this is the room with the king bed. Angry dad. I'm confused. You're saying this one has 2 beds and this one only has 1? Me. Yes, that is what you booked for your 2 reservations. Well, I called and you guys told me that both rooms would have a king and 2 queens in both rooms. Me. You called the front desk? Who did you speak to? We don't have any rooms like that. I don't know who the heck I talked to, but they confirmed that when I booked. That's the whole reason we came here. It was someone from your reservations. Me. So, you probably spoke to someone through corporate reservations, but unfortunately, they are not on our property. They don't always know what kinds of rooms we have and what's available. The front desk would have told you that we don't have that kind of room if you called us. Angry dad is getting angrier. They specifically told me that there would be 3 beds in each suite. Me. Well, you booked standard rooms, not a suite. However, even if you did book a suite, our largest ones only have 1 king bed in them. We don't have any rooms in this hotel that have multiple bedrooms. The most are 2 queen beds in 1 room. How the heck are we supposed to fit? Me. I can look and see if there's another room with 2 queen beds available. So we did have a 2 queen room available instead of the king, so I said they could have that room. Then the angry dad pulls up the website on his phone and he shoves it in my face going, "See? It says a king and 2 queens. Why does it say that if you don't have anything like that?" Me. Well, sir, that's just the tier. You can book a king or 2 queens. See? Angry dad looks shocked when I point to the word "or" on his screen. Well, why the heck did someone on the phone tell me otherwise? I could see on his face how dumb he felt, which only made him angrier. Me. Again, you spoke to someone who is not on the property. I always advise people to call the hotel directly because we do not have any rooms like that. I'm sorry you were misinformed. I need a manager here right now. This is ridiculous. Me. There is no manager on duty right now. You can come find someone to talk to in the morning, but unfortunately, a manager will not be able to get you the kind of rooms you're looking for. Nothing like that exists at this hotel. I gave him new keys for his 2 queen rooms, and he goes over to his wife to tell her what's happening. She then starts yelling at me, asking me what they're supposed to do. How are they all going to fit in 4 beds? I very calmly explain that I don't know how, but I can cancel their reservation with no penalty if they would like to go somewhere else. But that again, there's nothing I can do tonight other than give them these 2 rooms. They couldn't understand why I couldn't make 2 more reservations so that they could have 4 rooms. I told them again we are completely booked. I guess the concept of sold out wasn't clicking. I told them they could make 2 new reservations during the week, but that we are sold out tomorrow night too. So they stayed last night. I guess I will find out what happened when I go in today. One of their teenage sons came to me as the others walked away and thanked me for my help and apologized for his dad's behavior. Clever thief almost got away with $1,000 worth of merchandise. This happened 3 days ago, and I'm still surprised. I was working one of the registers on a pretty steady day. Not busy, but not slow as pond water either. While I rang up a few customers, I noticed 2 managers, the head cashiers, talking and looking both concerned and amused. When there weren't any customers waiting, I went to satisfy my curiosity when I noticed a cart stocked with lots of expensive power tools and batteries for said tools. My first thought was a customer forgot their wallet in their car and went to get it. Happens more often than you think. Or a customer went to grab something else before checking out. Well, no such thing. According to the head cashier, HC, 20s female, who was watching self-checkout at the time, a male customer came up to scan those items. There was another customer doing the same while head cashier watched, but she noticed something while the guy was scanning things. Now, every time something is scanned for purchase at any register, an image of it appears on the screen. The guy appeared to be scanning the power tools and batteries, but the head cashier noticed everything he had scanned on the screen didn't match the products he had. The screen showed several lines of the same small bit of PVC pipe, which was worth about $1 and some change, and this guy didn't have any PVC piping in his cart whatsoever. The head cashier noticed this and quickly gathered the courage to properly approach the customer as he was nearly done. She told him, very professionally, there was an issue with what he was scanning because it didn't match the image on the screen. The customer feigned ignorance, while the head cashier proceeded to scan one of the items he already scanned, and sure enough, the correct item appeared on the screen with the correct triple-digit price tag. She proceeded to remove what he scanned already and scanned every item correctly. Suddenly, the customer is surprised and says he can't afford all that. The head cashier does the, "Do you want to save some money by signing up for the company credit card?" bit, to which he declines and leaves empty-handed. Turns out the guy had a little barcode sticker on his finger for PVC and scanned it to make it seem like he was scanning the other items. If the head cashier hadn't paid proper attention, the dude would have walked out of the store with almost $1,000 worth of merchandise. Other managers were informed of the incident, and the assistant store managers gave the head cashier props for handling the situation so well. We have some wayward youths working at our store who have had a bad habit of neglecting their duties in favor of socializing with each other. This scenario should serve as a learning experience for them and future employees to be more vigilant. As messed up as the situation was, I was impressed at the thief's clever approach. I guess I'm a sabotaging moron. The following events have been unfolding over the past 2 weeks and finally came to a head about 90 minutes ago. I work front desk for a small boutique hotel. We cater to an upscale clientele, and my direct supervisors are the owners of the property. 4th of July weekend, I check in one of my regular couples with our holiday weekend romance package, and for once had good news. When the gentleman booked the reservation, he requested their favorite room, 712, which is a junior suite. At the time, all junior suites were booked, so he booked a Premier King and asked if a junior suite became available, would I change room types for them, and just leave him a voicemail to let him know. I confirmed the telephone number and asked that if he does not answer, do I have his permission to leave a detailed message with whoever answers or leave a voicemail. He responds that I am at complete and total liberty to do both, and if I just happen to lose the reservation for whoever has booked room 712, he'd appreciate it. And to my complete and utter shock, we received a few cancellations, including a junior suite, so I moved a few people around, locked them into 712, and left the voicemail with the good news. Told the couple the good news at check-in and asked him if he received the voicemail. He said he did not, but has been traveling for work and had not been in the office, so it will be waiting for him when he gets back to work after vacation. Thanked me for making the switch and calling, so off to the room they went. The following Friday, the owner called me into his office. With him in the office is a lawyer with a court order for security cam footage and receipts for certain dates. The lawyer is joined by his client. I guessed her to be in her late 50s, well-dressed with a smile that screams loving grandma. Boss man and lawyer leave me to pull up the receipts. Front desk, F&B, and minibar. They want it all as they go play with the security footage. As I print up each receipt, this poor lady looks sadder by the minute. Each page printed seems to break her heart. I offer her water or coffee. She asks if we have tea or a shot of whiskey. I oblige with both and a blueberry muffin. She then starts with her story. The lawyer is her divorce attorney, and if I didn't guess sooner, the gentleman I checked into room 712 was her husband, and the woman he checked in with at that time and all the times prior was not her. Her husband had been traveling for work for almost a month, was due back home in about a week. She was very upset he was gone for the holiday weekend, especially since her birthday was the 3rd. She said he promised to make it up to her. So that voicemail I left was on their home answering machine. She said she thought it was him surprising her. She packed a bag and waited for him to arrive to pick her up, and of course, he never did. She thought maybe the message was a mistake, so she called the hotel and asked for her husband's room, and sure enough, he picked up the phone in his room. She hung up without uttering a word. Then she researched the best, most expensive divorce attorneys in her area and was in that office first thing after the holiday weekend. And that was after she changed the locks on her house, changed banking passwords, and canceled a few credit cards. From what she told me, she and her husband were high school sweethearts. She worked 2 jobs while also taking classes at a local junior college after high school to pay for her husband to attend college all the way through to his master's, was a stay-at-home mom for their 3 kids so he could concentrate on his career. However, before they married, she asked for an ironclad prenup. She had heard so many horror stories of men becoming successful and cheating on their wives, leaving them for their secretaries, taking the home and family income with them. And she said she was not going to be one of those abandoned wives. So in their prenup, there was an infidelity clause. Proven infidelity means she got the house, the boat, the summer house, half his 401k, and a monthly alimony payment. And between the room charges, F&B receipts, and certain things purchased from the minibar, I think she has proven that beyond a reasonable doubt. And about 90 minutes ago, I answered the phone to be called every name you can think of, telling me I was going to be fired, that he was going to sue the hotel because I'm too big of an idiot to call a correct phone number. Turns out, the cheating jerk accidentally gave me permission to confirm the room upgrade to the wrong telephone number. Thought he gave his office number, and instead he gave his home telephone. This jerk went so far as to say we looked up his house telephone number just to sabotage him. That was until Boss Man pulled up the recording of the telephone call where he made the reservation, where I confirmed the telephone number, which was in fact his home telephone number, followed by his absolute consent to leave a detailed message. After listening to said recording, the cheating jerk uttered a single, "Oh," and hung up on us. Guess he came home and found the locks changed. You want your coffee hot? Even hotter? How about we curdle the milk for you? This happened a few years ago when I was first starting in hospitality, but this was the best intro I ever got to what hospitality is really like. It was the afternoon, and my boss was already in a cranky mood because he was teaching a 17-year-old how to use the coffee machine, which would drive anyone mad. A woman came in and ordered a dine-in coffee extra hot. He let me do the coffee while he went out back, and I made the milk to 75 degrees Celsius. For those who don't know, milk is steamed to around 65 Celsius, 149 degrees Fahrenheit, so this should have been fine. She came back.
I asked for extra hot, and this is lukewarm at best.
I'm brand new at this, so my boss assumes I've made a mistake. I remake the coffee, showing him it's now at 80 degrees Celsius, 176 degrees Fahrenheit. He tried a bit, edit, by pouring the milk into a separate first, burned his mouth, and confirmed the thermometer was fine. I took it out to her and said, "Sorry," and came back into a life lesson from my boss, saying that customers can sometimes tell when someone is new, so they prey on them. Again, the woman comes back.
I come here all the time, and I have never been so disappointed.
Or something to that effect, and storms back to her table. My boss and I are really confused at this point. He remakes it again. She brings it back again and begins to yell at me full Karen style. My boss has gone to the toilet at this point. I'm 17, brand new to customer-facing jobs, and trembling and crying. Finally, my boss walks up, yanks the cup from her hand, puts it under the steam wand, and turns it on. Milk is boiling over the cup, all over the countertop and onto the floor. He just stares at her. He hands it back to her without ever breaking eye contact. Milk curdled, half a cup of liquid missing, and says, "There, it's hot. I made sure of it." She was mortified. I was horrified. She sat at her table too stunned to complain and drank the coffee in peace. He went into the kitchen to tell the chef, and they cracked up laughing. That boss was the best and worst boss I've ever had. One time we were overbooked and had to cancel the most recent reservation. They called him a name, so he set up their tablecloth and utensils on the ground outside the restaurant and sent them a picture confirming their booking. If you lie about the number of people in your party to get set faster, you deserve to be kicked out. Today I worked a double, server in the morning and expo for the evening shift. The guy that was taking over my section agreed to take a 17 top as I was finishing cleaning my section and I began helping him set up. We're all starting to walk over and I head to the back, clock out, and then back in and put on my apron and get to work pulling food. Next thing I know, the server that took over for me is coming back and asking me how many the host said was in the party. I confirm it was 17, and he tells me that around 28 people are all sitting themselves in closed and reserved tables with them talking about more people who are on the way. When my manager makes her way over to the party, she asks them why they lied about the amount of people. They make up some crappy excuse saying, well, there were 17 people here, but it's gonna be around 32 total. She told them that they couldn't order their food until the majority of the screen was cleared so that the kitchen wouldn't be swamped, and that the rest of the people had to sit in different sections because one server couldn't handle that many people because they lied. It was for a girl's 17th birthday party, and the mom got very mad and started yelling at my manager, saying this wasn't a big deal and other people could wait because it was her daughter's birthday. My manager told them that they were being loud and disturbing the other guests and that they would need to leave if they kept it up. Suddenly, the whole party got loud and there was so much arguing and yelling, so my manager told them to leave. At first they stayed and kept calling other servers to get them drinks and take their order, but my manager told them to leave or they'd call the police. They then decided to cut the cake and obnoxiously yell the happy birthday song and like 6 different versions for 10 minutes. When my manager walks over and informs them that the police are on their way, they start threatening her and telling her and other staff members to meet them outside. Once they hear the sirens, they all take off like a bat out of heck. Funny thing was, it was actually officers going somewhere else for a different call. When the police do get here and talk to the manager and get the phone number of one of the members that had given it at the host's stand and watch the tapes, hopefully they get some legal consequences. Am I the jerk for kicking out my mother and sister? I'm 21, female. I own my own place. I've lived here for a while now, and I loved my own peace living by myself with no kids or a spouse. My mom, who's 41, wasn't the best when I was growing up. She would bring guys in and out of the home all the time. I'm glad nothing ever happened to me, but it gave me a bad view for her once I grew up, and not a good relationship along with it. I have a sister, 22, who's disabled physically and mentally. I grew up with her, but it was extremely hard to form a relationship with her. I had to take care of her a lot growing up, because my own mom wouldn't do any of it due to mom wilding around. My sister and I shared a room growing up, and I hated every second of it, if I'm going to be honest. My mom has been renting for a place to live, and since a few months ago, she can't live there anymore. My sister still lives with my mom, and my mom doesn't take care of her actively. She pays for a caregiver. My mom guilt-tripped me into letting her and my sister live with me temporarily for a month. I eventually said yes. It was fine for the first few days. My mom and sister have been living here now for 3 months. My mom said only 1 month. I have to work a lot, so I'm barely there anyways. But when I have a day off, I hate every second of it. I know my sister cannot help it, that she makes noises, a lot of noises, loud noises. It's like I can hear it everywhere. The caregiver still cares for her, but it's like having a complete stranger in my home. Long story short, on my day off, after hearing everything and the noises and tantrums, I went insane and snapped. I told my mom she has to leave. She refused to leave at first, but eventually she did. The last thing she told me was, "You're supposed to be grateful that I gave you a home to live in, and you can't give that back? You're a jerk and always have been." I eventually told her to just leave, and my mom got my sister and they both left. I feel like I'm the complete jerk because of the fact that I told her to leave just because I was tired of my sister, even though she cannot help it at all. Am I the jerk? Edit. Thank you all for taking the time to comment. I have no new news about my mom or sister. I haven't spoken to her since she left. I haven't been able to reply to comments because I've been insanely busy today, but I just now read most of the comments. I appreciate it, and I started crying at some comments because they hit a soft spot for me. I appreciate the comments you guys left. Thank you. Edit. To those asking how I have my own house at 21, I was given a lawsuit settlement for undisclosed reasons. That's a whole different story unrelated to this. When I was 19, and I knew a particular person who was selling a house for cheap, so I snagged it. I would say it was an unlucky, lucky situation. Edit 3. I will be speaking to someone soon on my sister's behalf. I haven't ignored this whatsoever or forgot. I'm going to try to get my sister the proper care that she needs from someone or a place who does know how to do that. I do not want to take care of her anymore. Nearly half my life, I was doing just that. Just for a final edit, she does not need to stay with our mom. Entitled Mom and Service Dog Fiasco. complete with fake fainting. Hi, I'm Crack Elf, and I have a service dog for my seizures. Before I recount the tale of this humanoid embodiment of a wet fart, I need to say a handful of things about service dogs. In the US, there is no legit or legal certification or registration for service dogs. There is no paperwork or certificate. There's no set harness or vest that makes a service dog real, and service dogs aren't even required to wear anything identifying them. For a dog to be a service dog, you must be disabled. The dog must be trained to do work to help with the disability. Snuggling or "he makes me feel better by being around" do not count. And the dog must not have any kind of bite record. The dog also has to be trained to handle being in public. I went to the redacted mall with my service dog and ended up going into a home decor shop. She was wearing a Harry Potter themed vest, Slytherin pattern fabric, but was marked clearly as a service dog. She was sitting in a close heel. I suddenly hear loud, angry, excitable barking, and it sounded like it was coming from a big dog. My service dog has been attacked before, so I was kind of freaked out already. I was looking to see if there was a second exit to the shop when I saw the older woman, entitled Mom, with her severely obese, hyperactive Labrador and wildly overstimulated kid in tow. The lab was pulling at the end of his flexi lead, barking his head off, and it looked like his tiny vest was either going to snap or cut through his fat rolls. She had the flexi lead attached to his vest, and he wasn't wearing a collar. We're in a sort of weird standoff where I look like I'm one minor inconvenience away from a heart attack, and she's smirking, letting her dog bark, pull, and fling saliva everywhere. The thing was acting like Cujo, Bird Dog Edition. Entitled Mom gets her son's attention by snapping a few times and then pointing at my dog and says, as loudly as she possibly can,
See? That's a fake support dog. The real ones are always retrievers.
I wasn't really sure what to say to that because she's wrong, and her service dog is currently running in place at the end of its lead because it can't get any traction on the floor. I couldn't get past her because the little corridor to the exit was narrow enough for Cujo 2.0 to get a hold of my service dog. I settled on, "Move, I can't get past your dog." She immediately starts getting upset and claiming that my wolf hybrid, husky but okay, is actually vicious and her dog only wants to play. I just sort of told her to move again. She started yelling for an employee, claiming she felt she was in danger and they needed to kick me out with my fake service dog because said dog, who was standing directly beside me, completely silent, was a direct threat to her psychotic lab. An employee who looks as if he gave up his happiness at the ripe old age of 15, God dude, I'm sorry you have to deal with this kind of person regularly, comes over and glances at me, then turns his attention to entitled Mom. The conversation followed. Employee: Your dog is barking and not under control. Please leave. You can come back without him. Legal to request and enforce if the dog is acting like that. Entitled Mom:
Excuse me? Are you trying to deny me service because my son has a support dog?
Said over the dog barking itself hoarse. Employee: According to the Americans with Disabilities Act, employees can ask people with disruptive or aggressive dogs to leave. You can still return without him.
My son needs this dog. He can't leave the house without this dog.
Whips out her phone, starts to dial 911. Me, still just looking for a way to get out of this store. Entitled Mom, on the phone with a 911 dispatcher, crying and screaming about how her son is being discriminated against because he has a service dog, getting more and more frustrated because the dispatcher is taking maybe a second too long. She demands that the dispatcher send EMS and the police. Son starting to cry because loud, angry mom is probably terrifying him. There's a short lull where her dog suddenly stops barking, sniffs the ground, and starts circling. He then pops a squat right in the Pottery Barn entryway, drops an almost liquid log so foul that it could curl a lumberjack's eyelashes. The employee sighs and tells her again to just leave, but not to come back. She resumes screaming. I zone out of reality and into the Wii Sports theme because I'm trapped in the store, not only by a possibly aggressive dog, but also by the river of molten doggy dew spread out in the entryway. Police and EMS arrive. They start asking three of us some questions. Employee and I are understandably losing the will to live, and entitled mom is screaming and gesturing wildly, yanking her crying kid around in the process. The cop turns to the employee and says, "Which dog made that mess?" Employee tells him the truth. It was Entitled Mom's dog. Entitled Mom starts screaming about how this is discrimination against her son. The cop asks what task the dog performs, legal, and she says emotional support. The cop, of course, tells her to leave because ESAs don't have public access rights. Entitled Mom suddenly interrupts the cop and says that the dog is actually for her fainting episodes, and he barks when she is going to faint. Dog resumes barking, and she dramatically faints. She said, "I'm fainting," and lowered herself to the ground, guarding her face, and then goes limp once she's on the floor. Everything is quiet for a moment until the cop says, "Ma'am," and she yells,
"Get the EMTs. I fainted. I am injured."
I have fully left this plane of existence, and I'm now watching in third person. EMS trundle over with a stretcher, which she limply rolls onto, making those weird fatigued Southern Belle noises. Dog resumes barking. Son resumes crying. The EMTs ask who's going to take the dog because they are refusing to transport a possibly aggressive animal. Entitled Mom resumes screaming about her discrimination. Entitled Mom caves after they tell her she will not be going to the hospital until someone else has the dog. Entitled Mom yells for her husband for 2 minutes straight until he comes up, takes the barking dog, takes the kid, and leaves. Entitled Mom is shipped to the hospital and hopefully the psych ward. A janitor comes to clean up the river of liquid doggy doo in the entryway. Employee goes back to the usual drudgery of working at Pottery Barn, and I go home because my batteries are empty. Edit. If I see another well-intentioned but misinformed person rooting for mandatory documentation/certification for service dogs, I'm going to leave this plane of reality and take every dog, puppy, wolf, coyote, and dingo with me so no one can enjoy them anymore. Chipotle. Once you get hired, you can never leave. My wife has been mistaken for a Chipotle employee 2 times, with somewhat hilarious results, resulting in an argument with a manager who thought she was a sloppily dressed new hire and a woman who could only yell. So a bit of background. 7 years ago, in college, me and her used to work for Chipotle. In fact, it was where we met. As we worked there, we amassed quite the selection of Chipotle t-shirts, and for those of you who don't know, the design is a small Chipotle logo on the front and a large design on the back. Back in the early 2010s, the designs were quite imaginative and had some pretty cool art on the back, which actually might be something you might want to be seen wearing. My wife's friend, a woman who through remarkable patience and tenacity actually became successful in the company, who still works there, hooks her up with the newer shirts. And yeah, they're not as good as before, with boring designs talking about special offers and real ingredients. Eventually, working there became too much for me, and I fell out with the management and quit. I was so mad at them, I was going to burn my shirts as an act of catharsis, but my wife persuaded me to let her have them for work, even though they were way too big for her, and so she amassed quite the collection. I'd estimate it to be about 20. She persevered for a while after I left, getting promoted to a kitchen manager, and then after we left, the huge collection of work shirts became her loungewear and pajamas. It's like when I got hired, I could never really leave because half the time I see a Chipotle girl wandering around the house. Harmless enough, but once or twice she's actually gone into a Chipotle wearing one of these shirts, and occasionally weird stuff happens. So the first one was about 2 or 3 years ago. We had been out the previous night. It was a Saturday, and we'd both gotten pretty drunk. When we'd gotten home, I helped her into bed, and she had just thrown on a t-shirt and fallen asleep, and then me not long after. I woke up the next morning feeling a lot better, had breakfast, but she was still pretty hungover from the previous night, so I just sat and played games for a few hours until about noon. I went in and asked her if she wanted food, and she did, but she wanted to go to Chipotle, as she felt burgers would be gross in her hungover state. She'd been sleeping on her back, however, so I hadn't noticed that she was wearing one of her favorite shirts, a huge, oversized, for her, one that she had gotten from me that featured a lettuce shouting lechuga on the back, add an avocado, which replies Gesundheit. As I said, the old designs were actually quite cool and weird. She slipped on an old pair of Lakers basketball shorts, a hoodie which covered up her t-shirt, hence me not seeing it, and some sunglasses to hide her hangover, and then we left for Chipotle. She brightened up on the way considerably as well, so everything seemed fine. We got our food and started eating, and then, as it was hot, she took off her hoodie and then said she'd be off to the restroom. I didn't think much of this, and again, I didn't notice the back of her shirt. So for a while, I carried on eating and finished. And then I'd noticed my girlfriend hadn't come back from the restroom, so I sent her a text asking if she was all right. She sent one back saying, "Long story," and then a few minutes later came back laughing. What had happened is she had gone to the restroom, and when she came out, ran into a woman who had asked her,
"What do you think you're doing, coming in dressed like this?"
It turned out this was the store manager. She thought my girlfriend was a new hire, and she proceeded to tell her off for coming in dressed in such a sloppy manner. An oversized uniform shirt and baggy basketball shorts give a poor impression of the company, and that she'd have to go back home and change, and that she was going to be written up. My girlfriend started to get angry in response. Then she looked down, and then at the reflection of the back of her shirt in the glass behind her, and realized the t-shirt she had thrown on last night was in fact, yes, a Chipotle uniform, so an easy mistake to make. She explained she was actually a customer, and this was her boyfriend's old work shirt, and started to apologize for coming in dressed this way and confusing the manager, at which point the manager apologized for telling my girlfriend off, and they spent about a minute in a loop of apologizing to each other. Finally, the manager offered my girlfriend a buy one get one free card for the mistake, and so in the end there were no hard feelings. So we got some free food from this one, and it was hilarious as well. That was one of our experiences. The other was actually a few weeks ago, and since the last time, we got married, so she's now my wife. Now that lockdown is lifting and we can go out a little, a while ago we went to Chipotle on a Sunday evening, and yeah, my wife was rocking a Chipotle shirt again. We figured that as it was quite late in the evening, there wouldn't be many people there. It would be pretty chill, and we couldn't be bothered smartening up, so we just went as we were. Also, the store we frequent seems to always hire super nice staff as well, so it's always been good. We go in, and yeah, there's only 1 or 2 people there, so it should be fine, right? We order, and the guy who made our food for us gave her a double take, but didn't really say anything. The girl on cashier, however, smiles and says, "I like your shirt." And my wife says, "Oh, I don't work here. There is life after Chipotle." And they have a nice conversation about college and how things are nowadays and lockdown, etc. I think she was about 17, and she enjoyed the conversation so much that she gave us our meal for free. I leave a nice tip for the cashier and the other staff as well, because I remember how good that felt at the end of the shift. And so we're heading towards our seat, and the evening has a generally good vibe to it so far. However, then we hear,
"No, you're doing my bowl wrong. I want this salad."
jab, jab, greasy fingerprints on sneeze guard.
"You're still doing it wrong. My God, how stupid can you be?"
And so on. And looking over my shoulder, I saw a woman who was one of these customers who is the nightmare of all Chipotle workers. The self-entitled customer who believes that by yelling and creating a scene, they can get whatever they want. If you're wondering why everything she said is in all caps, it's because she never lowered her voice and stopped yelling while she was in the store. It's the only way I can get across how obnoxious it was to be around her. We sit down, and then she finally gets her bowl made, exactly how she wanted it. But it wasn't good enough, and when she gets to our previously happy cashier, she proceeds to chew her out for being super slow and overpriced.
My God, this place is a disgrace.
And is just making her life a misery. The cashier is trying to placate her as best as she can, and an equally stressed manager, I don't think much older, appears and tries to calm down her Karen-ness, but the woman just won't stop. I just shook my head and started eating, but the manager must have done something to get her to leave them alone, because the Karen went and sat by the door after making a scene of snatching up her food and storming to a table. Karen clearly made quite an impact on the cashier as she ran off to the back to cry, leaving her equally miserable-looking manager in her place, and generally everything just feels bad now. We just finished our food and walked out, but as we go past the Karen on the way to the door, we hear,
"Hey, you. Yeah, you, girl."
And we stop. My wife turns around and says, "Excuse me, ma'am?" And Karen goes,
"Yeah, I know you're leaving work with your boyfriend, but as your manager, I want to make a formal complaint."
My wife turns back to me, grins, and mouths, "What the heck?" Because although she is wearing a Chipotle shirt, she's also wearing neon green running shorts, flip-flops, and a backwards green and yellow baseball cap, none of which are part of the approved uniform. This isn't how Chipotle managers dress, although I guess Karen figured she was slightly older than the rest of them. She's 28, and thus was a senior manager. My wife finished her time at Chipotle as a kitchen manager, and I guess the fact this customer made our new favorite cashier cry meant that she wanted a little payback for all of the time she'd been in the same situation. She does a very, very good customer service persona, all bubbly and sweet, and she slipped right back into it and then walked over to her and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. How can I help you?" Karen then goes off into a rant about how the store is badly run. She was kept waiting when clearly trying to mess around and go on a little power trip, and how the employees are all stupid, and no wonder they were all minimum wage and blah blah, generally being a jerk. My wife just listens intently and says with a smile, "Well, ma'am, those are some interesting observations, but I think you can just go forget yourself." Karen is stunned for a second, as well as the staff behind the counter, who seem to be enjoying watching someone stand up to Karen, and then says,
"I'm writing to head office, and you're out of a job, missy. Give me your name."
At which point my wife says, "I'm first name." Karen writes down her name and then says,
"You'll be hearing from head office after they hear from me."
At which point my wife says, "And I haven't been a manager at Chipotle for quite a long time, so I can pretty much say whatever I want to you." Karen just stares at her and says,
"But you're wearing their shirt."
To which she responds, "Yeah, I'm wearing it because it's a cool shirt and I used to work here. It doesn't mean I work here now, so I can tell you that you're being a massive jerk who likes taking her anger out on people much younger than her, and that I think everybody would prefer it if you just buzz off and stop throwing your weight around because Chipotle can't fire me." Karen is stunned, processing a girl in a Chipotle shirt telling her off instead of placating her, and then she pushes past us and says,
"This is a disgrace. Never coming here again,"
and slams the door behind her, and then drives off quickly. I'm just processing what happened as it was weird, and my wife goes back over to the two girls behind the counter to apologizing for saying that to a customer. I guess as in Karen's eyes, she was a representative of the company, but the girls were cool with it and quite happy that she did stand up to the Karen. And also it was just a customer versus customer interaction, despite appearances. So moral of the story, if you ever work a fast food job and want to go back there, check you're not wearing the old uniform before you go in. Edit. Apparently it's not an egg saying Gesundheit, but an avocado, as it was just pointed out to me. Speaking of Chipotle, what's your favorite place to go eat? Please let us know.
Nothing tops McDonald's.
Entitled dad tries to cut in line because his son needs his meds. Incident turns physical. To add some context before the whole story goes down, I recently suffered an injury at my work. I was granted time off to recover psychologically and physically. I've lost an unhealthy amount of weight and I'm quite tall, so I look kind of odd. Now on to the story. So I'm waiting at the counter at my local pharmacy. I'm waiting for a pretty big pickup of medications. I'm pretty stressed because it's quite busy in the pharmacy. I couldn't really figure out why, but I think it had to do with giving out some sort of shots. While I'm waiting, a man with a Blue Jays ball cap, entitled Dad, and his kid line up behind me. At this point, it's taking longer than I anticipated for my meds to come in, and I can tell the man behind me is getting quite impatient. Entitled Dad says,
"Hey, excuse me, can we go up?"
I respond, I think they're almost done." A few more minutes pass and the meds haven't come in. Ball cap guy, entitled Dad, is getting increasingly impatient and my social anxiety is clawing at the back of my head. Entitled Dad says,
"I'm going in front of you, buddy."
I say, "Can you wait a bit longer? I really need," Entitled Dad responds,
"Yeah, right, buddy,"
and pushes past me to the pharmacist counter. Entitled Dad yells,
"Excuse me, can I get my kid's medicine?"
The nice pharmacist lady, who happens to be my girlfriend's older sister, comes to the counter. We're very familiar with each other, and she's always been super nice and helpful. She looks a bit flustered and irritated. Girlfriend's sister goes, "We're just sorting out someone else's medications at the moment. Can you wait a bit longer?" I'm the only other person at the counter, so it's apparent who's causing the wait. Entitled Dad,
"So you'll give this fiend his medications, but not my kid?"
At this point, my social anxiety kicks in full drive, and my fight or flight instincts are raging. I'm using every fiber of my being to hold back tears. Girlfriend's sister glares at Entitled Dad and says, "Sir, you are going to wait your turn. No discussion. We're almost done." Entitled Dad gets angry.
"My kid needs his pills."
I look at the kid and he's dead silent. He looks like he wants to run away as badly as I do. Girlfriend's sister, "Sir, if you don't calm down, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." At this point, everyone in the pharmacy is staring at the commotion and I start crying uncontrollably. And I try to say, "He can just go ahead," to diffuse everything, but I'm pretty sure it came out as gobbledygook. Entitled Dad looks at me and screams, "What the heck are you crying about?" and starts approaching me. I'm all too familiar with confrontation in my work and I start freaking out. I turn to run away, but I feel something shove me and I fall onto the floor. It didn't hurt. My fear just overwhelmed me and I curled up into a ball on the floor and cried. I hear a lot of screaming and yelling between the pharmacy employees and the man. After what eventually felt like forever, some policemen arrive. Policewoman tries to ask me if I'm all right before questioning me. My girlfriend's sister was infuriated that they were questioning me and she answered everything for me. The policeman took Entitled Dad outside and my girlfriend's sister took me out back and drove me crying to my girlfriend's apartment. Edit. I want to thank everyone so much for the kind words and support. Life is hard right now, but it's always reassuring kind folks like you exist. 6 feet out or 6 feet up. I was reminiscing with my family about my late grandfather and some of the tomfoolery he got up to. I thought this story made a perfect post for this sub. Backstory. Decades ago, my grandparents purchased a large plot of land out in the middle of nowhere with the idea to build themselves a home and retire on that plot. They were both from the rural Midwest, so they originally wanted to keep the horses, chickens, and maybe a few other small farm animals on this land, hence the size. As the years went by and they started actually making plans, they realized that horses weren't really feasible for a variety of reasons. By that time, the area around their plot of land had been significantly more developed, so they instead split the plot into 8 pieces and sold the other 7, essentially financing their original purchase and the construction of the house, leaving their retirement and pension untouched. Because of their incredibly advantageous position, they made a point to only sell to like-minded buyers, friendly retirees who were looking for their last home and wanted a bit of the same rural isolation that my grandparents wanted. The result is that my grandparents ended up with their dream bungalow on a spacious lot surrounded by friendly neighbors and without any major time or money obligations. They ended up spending a lot of time volunteering and generally making friends with the community that was growing around them. The event. The area ended up becoming incorporated, and the town they were now living in eventually decided that the 2-lane blacktop road needed to be repaved and upgraded with sidewalks, gutters, and all the other amenities townspeople expect. Now, the county that the town was incorporated from had planned ahead, and there was plenty of room set aside for exactly this type of project, so none of the residents needed to move their fences or give up property to the state. However, most of them had placed their mailboxes on a post about a half dozen feet from their property line, nearer to the road so that the postman had easy access. When the construction started, a city representative visited each property on this street and gave them a heads up on what to expect, and also asked that the residents move their mailboxes to make room for construction. My grandfather, being of light schedule and helpful demeanor, offered to help his neighbors temporarily relocate their mailbox and post. He had retired from a career as a handyman, and several of his kids owned landscaping or similar businesses. So he and my uncle spent a few hours with a mini backhoe and unearthed all 8 of his neighbors' mailbox posts, cement and all. He saved the posts to reinstall when the road was complete and mounted the mailbox proper on each property's fence. The issue. Lo and behold, on Monday they had no mail service. After a bit of investigation, they realized none of their neighbors did either. So the next morning, my grandfather waited outside to see what the problem was. Right on time, the mailman drove down their side of the street, completely ignoring all 8 properties. Redoubling his efforts, the next morning my grandfather was able to flag the mailman down and ask what the problem was. According to my grandfather, the very curt response was, "I'm not required to deliver to any mailbox more than 36 inches from the edge of the road." A call to the Postal Service confirmed this rule. The mailman may deliver outside that limit if they want, but they are not required to. The compliance. Now, it's pretty amazing what you can get done with 8 business hours of free time. The problem was that 36 inches from the current edge of the road is in the way of construction. My grandfather spoke to the construction supervisor, who was sympathetic, but just as stuck as my grandfather was. My grandfather then visited the postal office and returned with a current copy of the regulations about mailbox locations. After a few hours of study and another visit to the construction supervisor's office with a half dozen donuts and some coffee, he had formulated a plan. Remember his sons who ran a landscaping business? My grandfather got in his truck and visited both businesses. He returned home with 8 20-gallon plant pots. These things are huge, 30 inches tall, and just about as large around. You see, while the construction guys couldn't mess with a federally protected, fixed mailbox, they were happy to move a pot out of their way in the morning and back when the job was finished for the day. My grandma makes some pretty darn good donuts, which is a pretty easy task when you have earth-moving equipment nearby. So each post was replanted in a 20-gallon pot, and each mailbox was remounted on a post, and each pot was placed conservatively within 36 inches of the current road's edge. The kicker was that a mailbox post that is meant to stick 4 feet out of the ground has at least 2 feet buried in the ground. In other words, it's a 6-foot post. When you post that inside a pot with a few inches of soil underneath and that pot on the surface of the ground, a mailbox on top is easily more than 6 feet in the air. You see, the mailbox codes clearly specify how far horizontally a mailbox needs to be from the road, but says nothing about how high that mailbox needs to be. It took a few more conversations with a postman and a visit from the local inspector, but the mailman spent the better part of 6 months delivering to 8 mailboxes 6 feet in the air rather than walk the extra 6 feet to the fence. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend I can't afford to feed his kids right now? Hi Reddit, I really need the unbiased opinion of internet strangers and accept any and all judgment. For context, my boyfriend, 36, male, and my son and I, 36, female, live together, and for the moment I am the main breadwinner. Boyfriend pays his portion of the rent, and I then pay for everything else. Food, utilities, my portion of the rent, fuel, basically everything else. And I have to budget like crazy to cover everything. I don't have a great salary either, but better than his. He's working on bettering his situation, and I support us with an open heart. No resentment and no expectations on repayment. He has 2 kids from a previous relationship that visit us semi-regularly when he's off work. So on to the issue. Last week, he kind of sprung it on me that his kids were coming to stay the night. I asked him nicely to let me know a bit sooner next time so that I could work my money situation. I reworked some things to feed all of us, and everything is good. I made a bunch of pancakes. Yesterday, he tells me that they're coming again. I think the ex is asking, and I ask if it's after I get paid. He says no, it's not. I say as gently as I can that it's the end of the month and I can't really afford 2 extra mouths right now. I'm having to borrow to make ends meet for the week as it is. He blows up, says he doesn't see his kids and it's not my responsibility, and he'll sell his car for money if he has to. I love him and I love his kids, but the reality of the situation is that I can literally not feed them too right now. I know it's just 2 kids and a few extra meals, but it's the reality of our situation. And one of the kids is a preteen that eats a lot more than I do some days, and that's okay. Please bear in mind that boyfriend has no money at all for extra anything. Am I the jerk for saying I'm not able to accommodate his kids right now? Karen didn't show up for work, so I fired her. I own a vape shop. We're a small business, only 12 employees. One of my employees, Peggy, was supposed to open yesterday. Peggy has recently been promoted to manager after 2 solid years of good work as a cashier. I really thought she could handle the responsibility. So I wake up 3 hours after the place should be open, and I have 22 notifications on the store Facebook page. Customers have been trying to come shop, but the store is closed. Employees are showing up to work, but they're locked out. I call Peggy and get no response. I text her, same thing. So I go in and open the store. An hour before her shift was supposed to be over, she calls me back. I ask her if she's okay, and she says she needed to take a mental health day and do some self-care. I'm still pretty upset at this point, but I'm trying to be understanding as I know how important mental health can be. So I ask her why she didn't call me as soon as she knew that she needed the day off. Her response, I didn't have enough spoons in my drawer for that. Frankly, I don't know what that means, but it seems to me like she's saying she cannot be trusted to handle the responsibility of opening the store in the AM. So I told her she had 2 choices. 1, go back to her old position with her old pay. 2, I fire her completely. She's calling me all sorts of names now and says that I'm discriminating against her. None of this would have been a problem if she simply took 2 minutes to call out. I would have got up and opened the store on time, but this no-call, no-show crap is not the way to run a successful business. I think I might be the jerk here because I'm taking away her promotion over something she really had no control over. But at the same time, she really could have called me. So Reddit, I leave it to you. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is Peggy? Please let us know.
After sitting here listening to Reddit Boy every day for the past 3 years, I think I could use a day off myself.
Cheat on your wife? I'll ruin your life. This happened about 4 years ago. But I recently found out how part of my revenge plan panned out, which is what prompted me to post this. I have never shared this with anyone before. Background. My mom has been best friends with Eileen, not her real name, since they were both kids, and Eileen has kind of been like an aunt to me. About 5 years ago, Eileen's husband of more than 25 years surprised her by asking for a divorce. Eileen lived about 6 hours away from her mom at the time, and I lived out of state, so I didn't find out how everything went down until a few months after their divorce was finalized. Unfortunately, Eileen's life kind of spiraled out of control after the separation and divorce. She developed depression and a drinking problem. But my mom and some other childhood friends were able to convince her to move back to her hometown, and then they convinced her to go to rehab. I moved back home shortly before Eileen went to rehab, and because my school/work schedule was pretty flexible, I was able to house sit and take care of some stuff while she was in rehab. The first time I visited her in rehab, I got the whole divorce story, and it was bad. Eileen's ex, Jeff, also not his real name, hadn't talked to Eileen about any problems prior to asking for a divorce, so she just assumed he fell out of love with her. But I was immediately skeptical about the things Eileen told me. First, Jeff, who was an executive at a pharmaceutical company earning mid-six figures, was fired from his job a year before they split up and decided to take a break before looking for another job. It was weird to me that Jeff decided to take a break from work because he had always been such a workaholic. Eileen hasn't worked in years because of a disability, but she has some property and a trust her parents left her that lets her live a comfortable life without working. Jeff and Eileen lived off money from the trust while he was unemployed. Then, after Jeff said he wanted a divorce, he refused to go to couples therapy or talk about why he wanted a divorce. The only thing he would say was that they had grown apart and that he was sick of being with someone like Eileen. He said Eileen's mother was right about her. Eileen's mother was a classic narcissist and had bullied her for her whole life, which caused a lot of problems that Jeff knew about. Finally, right after the divorce was finalized, Jeff moved out of state, but to a state he didn't have any family or connections in. Jeff's parents are still alive and in their 80s and 90s, and Jeff is pretty close to them, so it didn't make any sense to me why Jeff wouldn't move to be closer to them if he wanted to move after the divorce. I didn't say anything to Eileen because I didn't want to upset her, but I thought Jeff might have been having an affair, had orchestrated his unemployment to avoid paying alimony, and then moved out of state to be with his mistress. I just didn't have a way to confirm it at the time. The investigation. Then Eileen asked me to look for a box of Jeff's stuff he had asked her to hold for him until he moved into his new apartment. She told me all the info on the box, contents, and his new address was in an email he sent her, and she gave me the password to her computer so I could access the email. This is where I lucked out. It turns out Jeff had used her computer and set up his email on the computer. I accidentally clicked on the app for his email when I was searching for Eileen's email. I decided to take a peek at his email. The first thing I noticed was that he had mostly stopped using that email address 3 years before, which was about 1 year before he was fired. In a folder for digital receipts, I found a confirmation email for a dating site, which I think he saved there accidentally. I also found a verification email for a new email address. I started to put together a speculative timeline of what happened. I guessed that about 3 years before, Jeff started an affair, and shortly after, he decided to get a new email address to help keep the affair secret. I wanted to access his dating profile to get more information, so I tried to use the forgot password feature to see if I could generate an email that would allow me to reset the password and log in that way. Unfortunately, the dating site didn't recognize Jeff's old email address. I thought I might be able to get into Jeff's new email using his old email to reset the password, and then maybe I could use the new email to get into the dating website. But I didn't want to risk locking Jeff out of his new email and alerting him until I knew more about what he had done. And here's where I totally lucked out. The email app Jeff downloaded to Eileen's MacBook had a note feature, and super genius Jeff saved some passwords on notes. Most of the passwords weren't helpful, but I did get the password to the dating site and his Twitter and Netflix accounts. I logged into the dating site using his new email address and the password. I was able to read messages Jeff sent to another woman before he broke up with Eileen. The new mistress sent Jeff her email address and one of the messages. I searched Facebook for the mistress's email address and found her profile. I couldn't read her posts, but she left her photos public. She had recent photos of her and Jeff, so I knew they were still together. She also posted a photo of a construction crew breaking ground on a new home for her and Jeff, which was interesting because I got the impression from Eileen that Jeff didn't have a lot of money after the divorce. Here's where my background is important. At the time I was attending law school, I moved back to my hometown for 1 semester for a legal residency, and I had access to Lexis database, specifically their public records database. I had spent a good portion of one of my summer internships tracking down property records and other assets to help recover judgments for clients, so I knew how to search for public records. The mistress had purchased several acres in a wealthy suburb several months before Jeff filed for divorce, and there was no mortgage listed on the record. I had already found her LinkedIn page, so I knew that she worked as an executive assistant before she moved out of state with Jeff. She didn't advertise her salary, but I doubted she could have afforded the property with her salary alone. It's possible she had money outside her salary, but I suspected Jeff gave her money to purchase the land before he filed for divorce. I also found an updated record in Lexis showing Jeff and the mistress as joint owners of the property. I called the county records office to confirm ownership of the property, dates, etc. The mistress had filed a quitclaim just 5 weeks after Jeff's divorce was finalized. I was still hesitant to try to log into Jeff's new email, so I decided to check his old email again to see if there was anything else I should investigate before moving to the new email. I didn't find anything, but I noticed that several passwords in his notes were the same. I decided to try to log into his new email using the same password he used for the dating site. I figured the two accounts were created around the same time, so if he had recycled a password, that was the most likely candidate. It worked. His new email was a goldmine. Because this story is already getting ridiculously long, I'll list some of the relevant stuff I found. Jeff hadn't been fired from his old job. He quit and lied to Eileen. I found an email from his admin asking where to have payroll send his last check and details about a goodbye party for him. Some emails between Jeff and a boat repair person mentioning a leak somewhere on one side of the sailboat near the engine compartment. The repair guy couldn't find the source of the leak, but he talked about the current and future problems with mold and the engine on that side. Emails between Jeff and a boat broker, which included the email address of buyers further down in the string. An emailed report from the boat inspector, which didn't include the leak or any mold damage or potential damage to the engine. Emails between Jeff and his contractor about changes made to the new house's sunroom, something about a 3-season sunroom versus a 4-season sunroom, and the construction needing to be modified to deal with the weight of snow. Emails between Jeff and the mistress. They had married. The mistress and Jeff shared a calendar. Some flirty emails between Jeff and another woman. Emails with info on Jeff's new employer. I downloaded all of the important emails and their attachments and started thinking about a revenge plan. Revenge. To my mind, everything was fair game. He lied about being fired, so I wanted him fired from his new job. I suspected he hid his money before his separation from Eileen to help pay for his new house, so I wanted him to lose his house. He cheated, so I wanted to destroy his new relationship. Anything I could do about the boat was a bonus. The easiest place to start was the boat. I had no idea if the source of the leak was found and repaired, or if the leak was verbally disclosed to the buyer. But I figured Jeff was a lying jerk, so odds were fair he hid the info from the new buyer. I sent the emails between Jeff and the repairman and another copy of the inspection to the buyer. I searched Jeff's county court website 5 to 6 months later and found out the buyers had filed a lawsuit against Jeff and the broker and inspector. I couldn't figure out how to take or destroy Jeff's house, so I settled for contacting the county inspector's office to complain about the sunroom not being up to code. This is actually what prompted me to write this post, because I just found out some details about what happened with the county inspectors. Keep in mind, I heard about this from a third party years after the fact, so I don't know all the details. It turns out the sunroom was code compliant, but the inspector did find a workshop/workroom attached to the detached garage that wasn't on the original permit or plans. The workshop had a bathroom that the contractor attached to the property's septic system after the initial inspection. A mutual friend of Eileen and Jeff told Eileen and me, and he guessed this was a big deal because the size of the septic system they installed wasn't sized to handle the additional input, but I don't know for sure. Jeff had to pay a fine and the workshop had to be removed. This ended up causing construction delays, which will become relevant below. As for destroying Jeff's marriage, my first impulse was to send the new wife the flirty emails between Jeff and the other woman. But when I searched for that woman on social media, I couldn't find anything. I had no way of knowing if the new wife knew of the other woman and would think that the emails weren't important or evidence of an affair. Then I played around with the idea of updating Jeff's dating profile and sending stuff to his wife. But it would take too long to manufacture a fake relationship with real dates and times, and I was worried that Jeff might get an email alert from the dating site that would clue him in. I ended up just risking that the new wife wouldn't know the other woman. I pretended to be someone concerned about an affair between Jeff and the new woman. Overall, I kept accusation vague, but I did say Jeff and the new girl went out to eat and to the movies on a few dates. Jeff's shared calendar said the new wife was out of town. I couldn't come up with a way to get Jeff fired. I rechecked his email and calendar over several weeks looking for something I could use to get him fired. Eventually, my legal residency got too busy to devote much time to revenge, so I decided to just let it go. Eileen recently reconnected with a friend she shared with Jeff, and that friend gave Eileen an update on Jeff. Eileen shared the details with me, and that's what reminded me of what I did and prompted this story. It turned out that I didn't need to worry about sabotaging Jeff's career. By luck, the woman Jeff had been emailing was actually his assistant at his new job, and Jeff's new boss was his brother-in-law. Jeff and his new wife actually moved to her hometown so she could be closer to her family, and so Jeff could go to work for his new brother-in-law. I have no idea if Jeff actually was cheating. He told a mutual friend that passed this story on to Eileen that they hadn't been having an affair. It didn't matter to new wife though, because she and Jeff got together when Jeff was already married. She didn't have a lot of trust for Jeff. She didn't believe Jeff's denials when I sent the email about him having the affair. She filed for divorce, and Jeff's brother-in-law boss fired him. And since the construction was delayed, the new house wasn't finished when Jeff and his new wife divorced. They had to sell an unfinished home, and Jeff took a big financial hit. Finally, these weren't part of my larger revenge plan, but I am pretty petty, so I took the box of Jeff's stuff, mostly photographs, and threw them away. I told Eileen they must have been lost in the move. Signed both of Jeff's email addresses for a bunch of spam, mailing lists, etc. Deleted his Netflix watch list. Posted, retweeted, and liked a bunch of nasty stuff on his Twitter account and deleted all of the accounts he was following. The ending. I never told Eileen what I did because I wanted her to have a plausible deniability and I didn't want to interfere with her recovery. She doesn't know about the boat lawsuit or the Netflix and Twitter stuff, but she did take satisfaction from his divorce and job loss. I probably would have let it all go if Jeff hadn't had cheated, because I had always really liked Jeff. I always thought he was nice, but I was obviously wrong about him. Nice people don't do the things Jeff did. As far as I'm concerned, Jeff deserved everything I did to him. Do you think OP went too far with his revenge, or did Jeff deserve exactly what he got? Please let us know.
Always use two-factor authentication, especially if you're planning on cheating.
A customer wants to sue me for stealing his phone. A few years ago, I worked a couple of seasons as receptionist/everything that was needed at an inn in one of those really popular Costa Brava tourist cities. Due to the location, next to the main road that crossed the city, our restaurant was open to everyone, not only the guests. The restaurant had some outdoor tables next to the parking, accessible to everyone, not only for the customers. This is important. A lot of locals used our terrace and parking as a shortcut from the main road to the school that was on the other side. We also were the first restaurant that people that were going to the regional hospital would find. Due to that, every morning we had the ambulances crews eating breakfast. We liked them. They all knew us. My manager very often would make them some discounts. They didn't want us to give them free things. Several times, we had them leaving in a rush before they got a call. They would eventually come back later to pay for everything and apologize that they left without paying. We always told them not to worry about that. Our relationship with most of them was great, mostly because of one man, CG from now on. One day, CG and his colleagues came to eat lunch after work. It happened to also be one of the busiest days in the restaurant and the inn, so our attention was split between attending to the customers at the tables, at the bar, serving food, clearing tables, and accepting customers to the rooms. Usually, we try to clean the tables shortly after the customer leaves, but that day was chaotic. We were understaffed and starting to become overwhelmed. Even the kitchen staff had to go out sometimes to help clean the tables. So with all that is going on, we didn't even notice when the guy paid and left with his friends. Now to the main event. Apparently, he forgot his phone on the table outside, the closest table to the open sidewalk. We had signs stating that we were not responsible for lost items. He came the next day in his paramedic uniform asking if we had found his phone. I calmly told him that I personally have not, but will ask my colleagues if they did. I checked the lost items box, but nothing was there, nor have any of my colleagues found anything. So when I went back to him and explained that unfortunately we have not, at this point he dropped his nice guy facade and started yelling at me saying, "You don't have respect for what we do for you. I'm sure that you decided to keep the phone for you because you don't earn enough to afford one, you thief. I know it was you because you're the one that served us yesterday. You have to give me my phone back now." I looked at him astonished, still trying to comprehend what just happened, and I say, "Sir, as you know, our terrace is open to everyone, and we are not responsible for items you leave on the tables." Then he went on with, "Don't come at me with that BS. I know you pick up items from the tables when people leave them behind." Me, "Yes, that is if we spot them. Unfortunately, yesterday was a really busy day, and we weren't able to keep up with the cleaning, so we didn't see what was left on your table. That is, of course, if anything was left there." CG didn't like my answer.
How dare you call me a liar? I come here to eat every day, and you offer me this crappy service? I'm going to sue you unless you give me my phone back. Now!
Me, "I see that you don't understand. I can't give you something we don't have here."
Fine, you wanted it,
said as he stormed off. I thought that was it. My colleague looked at me surprised. The couple of locals sitting at the counter drinking their beer were also confused. I just got my coffee and went for a break. A day had passed, and as I was doing the closing shift, we closed the restaurant at 11 p.m. and this guy shows up 5 minutes before.
Have you found my phone yet?
I told you that I can't find something that isn't here. Suddenly, he decided to act calm.
I'm not interested in the phone itself, but on it I had pictures of my kids and our trips. If I don't get it back, I will lose that.
Me, that is really sad. I wish I could help you with that. Trust me, if I would have found the phone, you would get it back. Dropping his act. CG.
You clearly don't care about customer service. You only care about the money. You took my phone and sold it somewhere. I want you to give me my phone back, now, or I'll take legal action.
At this point, I was done with this guy. Me. Perfect. Go ahead. As long as you leave now, because it's past closing time. He left quickly, mumbling under his nose. Next day was Sunday. I came to the restaurant for my evening shift, knowing that the next day I had to open too. Usually this doesn't happen unless it's an emergency, because it requires the person that closes the inn to sleep at most 4 hours, because we open at 6 a.m. and closing requires you to stay a couple of hours after closing to get everything ready for the next day. On Sundays is also when the owner of the company comes to eat lunch here with his family. He usually sits close to the register to keep a track on everything and make sure that there's no problems. It's a really calm day. We only have a couple of tables in the restaurant, plus the owner's table. 30 minutes into the shift, CG appears again. He goes straight to the counter and starts his sermon.
Are you ready to give me my phone back?
Me. I keep on telling you for the last 3 days, we don't have your phone here. If you left it outside, it's your fault.
You're all going to regret this. I know the chief of the police. He's going to send the whole CSI here, and they'll find my phone. Your restaurant is going to be closed down. You all are going to regret this. That is, unless you give me the phone. Do you want me to go there as I leave from here?
Done with his crap, yet still keeping calm. Me. Look, I don't know what you want to do with your free time when you leave from here. I can barely control what you do when you're inside. If you want to go to the police, go ahead. Just leave and stop disturbing my customers. He storms off, slamming the door behind him. As I turn around and sigh, the owner gets up and comes to me. He asks me quietly to come with him to the kitchen. Once there, he asks me what this was all about. So I explain to him what had happened the last few days. He then says, with a tone of a father trying to cheer up his kid, "Owner, you handled it really professionally. I'm glad to have you here. Don't worry about that guy. You haven't done anything bad. If he actually goes to the police, you have no need to talk with them. You're just a worker here. Just give them the number of your manager, and don't make any statements if you don't want to. It's the management's job to deal with it." A few minutes later, the owner left with his family, and my colleague and I returned to our jobs. 2 hours later, the front door opens, and 2 police officers, with clear signs of being annoyed for having to leave their desks to deal with something, enter the restaurant. They come to the counter, and I approach them. "Officer, Do you know what we are here for? Me. I have a slight idea, but it will be better if you state it, officer. We received a complaint that a phone got stolen here. Me. If you refer to the guy that continues to claim that we stole his phone, no one in the restaurant has an idea what phone he's talking about. Officer. Well, the problem is that the phone has to appear and to be returned to him, or else someone will have to be charged with theft and illegal appropriation. At this point, I've seen where this was headed, and I was too tired of dealing with this matter. Me. Look, officer, I'm just a simple worker here. Since you're threatening the company with legal charges, I will give you the phone number of my manager. I will not say anything else regarding this matter to you. I gave them the number. They thanked me and left. I poured myself some coffee and started to drink it. One of my usual customers sitting at the counter looked at me and said jokingly with his half-drunk voice, "You're gonna go to jail, the fallen Polish." We laughed for a moment and I went back to work. Fortunately, CG didn't come back anymore and no more police came that day. I seriously thought I had finally got rid of the guy. Silly me. Next day I get to the inn with 4 hours of sleep and get everything started up. My usual 6 a.m. customers are there sipping their coffee, and suddenly the doors open and there he is, CG. He comes up to me. I hear one of the guys at the counter say, "Not him again." CG. "So, did you like the police visit? Are you going to give me my phone back?" Me. "Can you just get over it? I can't give you something I don't have. I keep on telling you this since last week." CG. "I'm going to tell everyone not to come here. All you do is steal from your customers. I'm going to get you fired, to get your restaurant closed. I will tell all my colleagues to stop coming here if they don't want to get robbed. I have connections in the newspaper and TV stations. The whole country will know that you steal from your customers. You are going to get cancelled." And he left. I just dropped my hands and sighed. The same customer from yesterday said, "The fallen Polish. Seems like you're gonna be famous." I laughed and continued with my duties. At 9 a.m., my manager came to work. As he was checking the booking in the system, I approached him. Me. "The guy from the phone was here this morning again. He said that he'll go with the story to all the newspapers and TV, that he'll make sure everyone knows how we treat our customers." My manager looked at me and started laughing. "That's great. Free advertising for us." We never heard of him again. The ambulance crews kept coming, and his threats remained that. Just threats. Now I know it's long, but I thought that it would be nice to share this with you all. I'm officially done. Yesterday I had made plans in advance, relying on me getting out at 3 p.m. from an opening shift, 10:15 to 3 p.m. The reason I was able to plan this is because I can see everyone's schedules both online and on the paper copy. My replacement was supposed to be there at 3, meaning I could easily get out at 3:05, if not before. That was until my replacement called out at 1:30 p.m. yesterday. I told the manager on the floor that I could only work what I was originally intended to, and she said she'd try her best. It has always been the precedent that as a busser, if your side work is done and your replacement is here, you can leave after checking out with a manager. The floor manager eventually got someone to come in earlier, which meant that I should have been able to go without an issue. 3 p.m. rolls around, and I check out with my busser coworker who I'm leaving behind, and go to a different manager to check out. She then proceeds to argue with me about how "No, that's not how we roll," and she's trying to keep me there. I proceed to stand my ground, and she calls in the general manager. The general manager has me come into her office and sit down. They apparently expected me to suddenly work 2 more hours on the fly without even asking me. General manager. "So, I heard that you were intending to leave at 3. Why did you make plans?" Me. "Because I could see everyone's schedules, so my replacement was due to come in at 3 and planned accordingly." "So, you just assumed you would be getting off at 3? "I guess." "Did you call a manager to see when exactly you were to be off?" "No." I was astounded that I had to even think of calling a manager just to see when I would get off. I don't think management would want all of us constantly calling to make sure we'd be off anytime we want to make after-work plans. GM. "Okay, so you assumed you'd be getting off at 3. You know that isn't how our schedules work. Just because it says 10:15 to 3 p.m. doesn't mean you'd be getting off at 3. This really threw me for a loop, because then why bother printing schedules in the first place? You sit here and wonder why people are upset with their schedules when you don't even follow them yourself? I don't say anything. "The best I can do is to get you out of here at 4 p.m. Me. "That won't work." GM. "Have a little bit of compassion. Your coworker's grandmother just passed. You were in a sticky situation too, and people took up for you. This is a reference to when I had to escape a horrible situation and was unable to work. Me. I am truly sorry, but I cannot cover for him. So, you're saying you have to leave right now? Are you sure you want to deal with the consequences? Yes. Alright, this will be your final written warning. This cannot happen again. Okay. I'm very disappointed in you. I thought you had a great work ethic. You were mature and responsible. Now my opinion of you has been changed, probably permanently. Okay, that's fine. You're free to go. I'm going to be putting in my 2 weeks Tuesday, along with a written letter disputing the write-up. They tried to get me to sign the write-up, but I declined and said I had a response in writing that I will be submitting. They frustratedly agreed and let me continue my shift tonight. I'm 16. I don't have a car or license, and my ride was waiting for me. I couldn't have just told them to wait another 2 hours. Karen wife constantly lies about me. I finally called her out on it. My wife has been lying a lot lately. She's overly conscious of other people's feelings, and she uses white lies to shift the blame onto others to lessen the blow of a situation, always to her benefit. She will find herself in situations where she wants to back out of weekend plans with her friends or explain why she did something seemingly rude, etc. But she always blames me. My husband doesn't want me to leave this weekend. Sorry, he's such a jerk. Or, I only screenshotted this conversation we had because my husband told me he wanted to see it. Sure, I can handle someone confronting me about this stuff far better than she can. She has high anxiety when it comes to confrontation, but I'm really sick of being her scapegoat and letting people think I'm a selfish jerk. I was watching our kids this weekend while my wife hosted a bachelorette trip for her friend at my wife's aunt's lake house. Last night, my wife calls me and says I can come over with the kids rather than wait till early this morning like planned. I get to the lake house and the girls are all still out at a bar somewhere, so I let myself in and put the kids to bed. My wife's aunt texts her after seeing me on her security camera and tells her that she's upset that I was there. That's weird to me because she and I get along very well, and I'm even renting a house from her. She has really high anxiety, but she manages it well most of the time. She then texts me this morning and begins yelling at me about how I had no right to invite myself over and that I'm a bad father. Naturally, I was shocked and asked her what she meant. Turns out, my wife texted her saying she didn't know I was coming and that I'm an incompetent father and she had to help me because I didn't know how to watch my own kids. I told her that that was not true and that my wife invited me to come because she knew it was closer to my work and I could sleep in rather than get up early to bring the kids. I, of course, confronted my wife about why she would lie about me and say things like that about me. She then gets mad and says she was doing damage control on the situation and that it's far better if her aunt is mad at me than her. So now we're fighting because I, of course, don't appreciate being put in that situation. But my wife thinks it was a necessary sacrifice to keep her aunt happy with her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
I dare you to lie about me, Reddit boy. I'll pop that head of yours like a balloon.
My ex-wife, Karen, refuses to let our kids have pets. I'm divorced 6 years and remarried 2 years. I have 2 sons with my ex, who are 11 and 13, both male. My wife has 1 son who's 9, male. My kid's mom lives less than a mile away. It's close enough for the kids to walk over, but far enough to be separate space. My boys move back and forth between their moms and my house usually once a week. We're flexible, especially during the summer because of travel, kid activities, etc. My wife's son lives with us full time. My wife and I have been talking with the kids about getting a pet that they would personally be responsible for at our house. This has been going on since December, and we told the kids we would finally get the pets when all of our summer travel was done. Since then, the kids have been excited about the prospect of having their own pets. We asked them to research their chosen pet, determine what its needs were and what kind of common health problems that kind of pet could have, and how to avoid them. The kids all presented their reports and did an awesome job starting out as responsible pet owners. My kids started thinking about how they would take care of their pets when they were with their mom. We presented their options as we saw them. Come over from time to time, ask for help from someone that's here all the time, bring the pets back and forth. They decided they would like it best if they could bring their pets back and forth between the houses. We said that it would be okay with us, but they had to talk to their mom about it. I let them know that it was their responsibility to initiate that conversation. 2 weeks ago, I reach out to my ex to see what her answer is regarding the pets moving back and forth. She lets me know how the kids approached that conversation, saying, "Dad says we can bring the pets back and forth." I apologize and let her know that that wasn't my intent. I clarify that we're fine with any of their 3 options for caring for these pets. She replies, "In concept, I don't disagree with it." And also later in the conversation, "It's totally unfair to expect me to secondarily be responsible for these pets." I'm confused, but leave that conversation feeling certain that she doesn't want to participate. So I decide that I will take care of the pets while the boys are away. Yesterday, we bought the youngest 2 their pets. They are ecstatic, and it's adorable how they're caring for them. I get an angry message from my ex stating that the purchase of their pets is an imposition on them, regardless of whether they go to their house or not, and a bit of patronizing.
I understand that you and your wife are excited about having an autonomous family unit of your own, but you continually make decisions together in a vacuum that impact the wider scope of immediate family, and it's really not okay.
Am I the jerk for buying these pets without her approval? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex-wife? Please let us know.
The most important question of them all, what kind of pets?
Dress for the job you want, not the job you have. The management company that oversees my apartment building has always been total crap. Packages go missing from the mailroom, repairs take forever, staff are unfriendly, not at all worth what we pay in fees. There was only one solid employee, and he almost made up for everyone else's incompetence. The janitor, Ruan. He kept everything sparkling clean and even pitched in when the other people slacked off, helping with repairs, ID checking in the lobby, and more, just because he took pride in the building. Then the corporate oversight of the management company changed, and the new boss was having all the properties inspected to do a quality spot check on the individual building managers. Our manager, the winner that he is, decided that the best course of action would be not to come in the day of the oversight visit so that it would have to be canceled. The hope was that the checker would just inspect what he could without the manager on site, which wasn't much since he'd have already made the trip out there. My apartment has terrible cell reception and no AC, so I spend a ton of time downstairs in the lobby, which has both. I was able to overhear most of the planning for this visit as a result. Our janitor, Ruan, knew too, and he was spiffing everything up like new in excitement. Fixing a few broken things the repair guy ignored, and even bringing in fresh-cut flowers to the lobby out of his own pocket. Ruan dressed up in a collared shirt and khakis for the visit. He didn't know the manager was bailing. I just heard it hanging out in the lobby late one night. So when the corporate inspector arrived, Ruan was the only guy he saw. He was dressed up, so the inspector shook his hand and started rattling off the things he wanted shown to him. Ruan knows this building better than anyone else on the staff, so you could tell he was a little overwhelmed at being seen as the point person, but he knew the answers to every one of the inspector's questions. Meanwhile, a few tenants and contractors who frequent the building passed and all knew Ruan, brought him concerns about their apartments. Those on the staff who knew he was being inspected even made a point to say, "Yeah, Ruan's the guy if you've got a problem." So the end of the inspection must have come because they recongregated in the lobby. The inspector told Ruan he wanted to get his full name so he could make a note in his employee file of how well he's run the building so far, and that he'd meet with him later in the week to discuss fixes for the problems he found. Ruan, shocked, is like, "You want to meet with me again?" And the inspector is like, "Sure, I'm looking forward to a long working relationship. I like to meet with each building once a month. Sorry, what was your name again for the file?" Ruan told him, and the inspector goes, "Oh, hold on. I thought someone called Eddie was the manager here." And Ruan explained, clearly embarrassed and scared he had done something wrong, that he is not the manager. The manager didn't come in today. The inspector then went and spoke with a few people in the building on his own, while Ruan absolutely lost his crap in the lobby, thinking he was going to be fired or get the building censured or something. Eventually, the inspector comes back and he sits Ruan down and tells him he might not be manager in title, but he's manager in action, so if he wants it, he's got a new job. The man cried. Ruan's been working as a contractor through a janitorial service, not directly for the building, so no benefits, considered part-time, very little job security or support, and he had just gone from that to a cushy office job in the building he loves in the blink of an eye. I was sitting on the couch a few spaces down from them, The lobby has a sitting area with tables and chairs and couches, and I felt compelled to ask, before anyone got too excited, "Hey, excuse me, can you do that? Or could someone veto this?" Because I hated to think Ruan would be so excited only to have some sort of bureaucracy or old boys club shoot down his promised opportunity. The inspector turns to me and informs me he's the new COO of the management company, and final hiring decisions are at his sole discretion. Then he asked who I was, and I basically said, I was just leaving, and I buzzed off out of there before my big mouth complicated things any further. This week, Ruan started officially. We've got flowers in the lobby every day now, and a dripping faucet I've been waiting 6 weeks to have fixed is scheduled for repair on Thursday. He didn't work there, but he does now. Insane Bridezilla meltdown. About 5 years ago, our hotel's owners remodeled. One of the most popular room combos is a suite/double-double at the end of the hall. The rooms do not adjoin, but the rooms are next to each other, located at the T at the end of a hall, with a door in the hall that closes the rooms off, making a mega suite, if you will. The double-double is just your standard double-double, but the suite is actually kinda neato. Sofa bed and 2 comfy chairs in the living room, wet bar, dining table, half bath off the living room, and very pretty full bath off the bedroom, with a vanity and a claw foot rub. What the owners thought was a good idea and retreat for families has become super popular with bridal parties. The half bath in the suite, we are told, is genius, and the full bath makes for some very nice getting ready pictures. So, about 3 months ago, my coworker books suite/double-double at the end of the hall for a bridal party. The person making the reservation, who I will call Bridezilla from here on out for obvious reasons to unfold, requests an early check-in, explaining it's for a wedding. My coworker states that we are happy to put down the request, but it is only that, a request. We will not and absolutely cannot guarantee an early check-in, even for a wedding. Bridezilla asks how to guarantee an early check-in, and she is informed the only way to guarantee is to book the night before. Bridezilla scoffs at the idea of paying for a full night when she just needs a few hours, and coworker tells her that most of our brides actually do book the night before and stay with us to relax and get a good night's sleep before the big day, with an added bonus of not having to rush to the location in the morning. Bridezilla gets all snotty and tells coworker not to bother with the night before, and we are just trying to scam her, and she will get her early check-in. And at least once a week since the reservation was booked, Bridezilla has called to make sure we know about her request. And wouldn't you know it, about a month before the wedding, a family books those rooms, checking out on Bridezilla's wedding day. After the family books their reservation, Bridezilla calls again, reminding us of her request, and we let her know that she may want to come up with a backup plan, that we would be happy to attempt an early check-in, but the only way that it's going to happen is if by some small, microscopic miracle, the family checks out very early. But they have until checkout at noon, and her reservation does not technically start until 3 p.m. We're like, hey, we really do not think we can get you in early. We allow cancellations and changes up until 48 hours prior to arrival. So if you need to cancel and book elsewhere, we completely understand, and best wishes on your special day. She tells us that the family will check out early, and we will send housekeeping over immediately after checkout to clean, and it better be spotless. We tell her that is not how any of that is going to work, that the family has until noon, and housekeeping would be happy to attend to the room right after checkout if and only if they are currently attending to rooms on that floor, in that area. Our housekeeping staff has a system and we do not mess with it. Period. No exceptions ever. You simply do not tell these overworked, underpaid, amazing coworkers how to do their jobs. Day of the wedding arrives, and so does Bridezilla at 10 a.m. She steps up to the front desk, and guess what? The room is still occupied. She just starts shaking her head and tells us, no, she's checking in now. Hair and makeup will be here in an hour, and she needs to shower. And she checked over and over again, and we had her request, right? We knew about her request. Just do what she requested. We tell her, yes, we have her request. It was a request, not a guarantee. There's nothing we can do but wait at this point. She pulls out her phone and starts to dial, screaming to people that the room is not ready. In the middle of this, someone who I can only assume was a bridesmaid shows up, talks to Bridezilla, and comes to the desk asking why there is a holdup. We tell bridesmaid there is no holdup. Bridezilla booked the room for tonight. Check-in is at 3 p.m. Room will be ready at 3 p.m. Bridesmaid says,
No, you said we could get an early check-in.
we tell her no. We could put in a request for an early check-in, that we warned Bridezilla since day one that we cannot guarantee an early check-in, and warned her about a month ago that a backup plan would be a very good idea since the room is currently occupied. Bridesmaid asks what we can do, and I tell her to wait. We cannot kick the guests in the room out. They paid for it until noon. Bridesmaid says,
Yeah, I guess not. Problem is, wedding starts at 3 p.m. I need to have a little talk with the bride.
Bridesmaid goes back to Bridezilla, and they begin to have a very animated whisper argument. Father of the bride walks in, and Bridezilla tells him to tell us to let her into the room. He rolls his eyes and asks us what the problem was. We inform him that there is no problem. Early check-in again was a request, not a guarantee. That we offered to book her in the room the night before, but she refused. That she booked the room for tonight. Check-in is at 3 p.m. Room will be ready at 3 p.m. He said that is not what we told his daughter. We tell him yes, that is exactly what we told his daughter, and we have the recording to prove it. Dad goes back to Bridezilla and tears her a new one, asking how she could be so stupid as to let the whole day hang on a maybe. She said she didn't want to pay the extra money. He shouts back, when it's this important, you pay the extra money for the guarantee, and if she hadn't been such a stubborn brat, she'd be in the room and her brother wouldn't have been left to sleep in his car last night. She runs to the desk and yells at us to give her the key, knocks down the stand with the tourist brochures next to the desk, runs up the stairs and in the direction of where I guess she thinks the room is, knocks on the door of what she thinks is our room, and demands that the guest in that room let her inside, demanding that all of us just let her into the room. While the meltdown is taking place, Bridesmaid asks if there's a bathroom or dressing room, anything that they can borrow to start getting ready. We offer a small conference room that has a bathroom attached. Dad picks up Bridezilla and tosses her into the conference room where hair and makeup is beginning to set up. Bridezilla keeps saying,
I wasn't gonna pay for the whole extra night, Dad. I didn't need a night. I just needed a few hours.
Dad says he cannot wait for this day to be over because maybe he'll get his daughter back, and if not, she's someone else's problem now. The rest of the preparation seems to go okay. They leave for the wedding. We place their bags in the room at 3 p.m. And I also clock out for the night. The next morning I walk in, excited for gossip and news on what happened when the bridal party came back after the wedding. There was none. Entire party came back completely hammered. They stumbled back to their rooms with barely a peep. We have a silly tradition of delivering champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries up to the bride and groom when they arrive back after the wedding. Room service went to deliver. We were expecting no tip and attitude from the bride. They tipped well, and she burst into tears about how nice we are here, and isn't it nice that we are so nice? They didn't even come to the desk to check out, used the TV to check out, and left the keys in the room. But guess who had to clean up and reorganize the brochures? Yup, me. Couple comes in 10 minutes before closing, but they don't want to be rushed. One night, we had a couple walk in 10 minutes before closing. Host is asked if we are still serving. 8:50 p.m. Host, yes, for 10 more minutes. We can seat you, but we need you to order quickly. Couple,
That's fine. Whichever is your quietest table.
server was not happy, but accepted it. Immediately started with bread and water. 8:55 p.m. Asked if they were ready to order. Couple, we need a few more minutes. Server, well, the kitchen is closing in 5 minutes. I will give you a minute and we'll be back. The restaurant is down to a few tables just drinking coffee, having dessert, and settling their bills. Server warns the kitchen 2 last entrees and maybe an app or dessert. Kitchen guys are not happy, but at least starting some of their closing duties. 8:56 p.m. Server returns 1 minute later. Server, what will you have? Couple,
What do you recommend?
server, I recommend coffee and dessert since it's closing time. With a straight face. I'm nearby helping a host and a bartender with closing duties as I watch this table from a few feet away. Couple, we're thinking that we would like to first start with wine and appetizers. When you bring the appetizer, we will have decided what entrees we would like. Server, I'm very sorry, but the kitchen closes in a minute. I need your whole order now. Otherwise, there won't be any dinner tonight. Couple,
There is no need to rush us. We are having a special date. We came out this hour because it's quiet and romantic.
server is not having it. Now I'm nearby if I have to step in. The couple gets the message from the look on the server's face. They fortunately asked for 2 prime ribs medium, which is basically cut, grill, and serve, their sides, and 2 glasses of wine. 8:59 p.m. Server tells them a couple of minutes for their entrees will be out, 5 minutes to be exact. Gets them their drinks. Server asks one last time, will there be anything else tonight? They barely acknowledge the server, but say there won't be. 9:05 p.m. Once the server drops off the entrees and double checks if there was anything else, just a no and a thank you for the food. Server drops the check off and tells them good night, and my manager will come back in a few to run the bill. Server comes back to start the checkout process, but tells them I will transfer the check to the bar so that they don't have to stay any longer than they have to. I would make sure their tip would be saved and put in the safe for safekeeping for next shift. 9:30 p.m. Doors are locked. Bar is cleaning up. Host and server are checking out for the night. Bussers are cleaning the other side of the restaurant. Kitchen is almost done, sweeping, mopping, and trash, aiming to be out by 1 hour past closing. 9:45 p.m. Check the table, still eating. Bar is now clean and checking out with me. Bussers are just setting up for the next day and waiting for that table. Kitchen is clean, checked out, and clocked out. Server and host are already gone for the night. 1 busser has left since they had started earlier. I check the table with busser and get the check and close out. Couple.
That was delicious, but we're thinking maybe dessert and some coffee. What do you have on the menu?
Me. I'm very sorry, but our kitchen has been closed for a while. I will need to close the check and see you out. Couple.
We were looking forward to dessert.
I just stand and wait. Busser right next to me. The man of the couple gets the hint and finally produces his wallet, looks over the bill and hands it over. Busser immediately clears the table. I run the card and return back with his copy and signature to close it out. I ask for the signature so I can finish the transaction. Man seems perturbed I'm rushing him. I walk to my bartender, have him close it, and start his paperwork. 9:55 p.m. Table is clear, but they have still not left. I politely ask the couple, it's time to go. Walk them to the door. The man starts to complain about how they've never been so rushed and probably will not be coming back. He's saying this as they're walking out the door. I hold the door as I say, I'm sorry you felt rushed, but next time, come in at an appropriate time to have dinner, not 10 minutes before closing. Good night. I close the door, which has frosted glass. I can see the man now screaming and yelling at me. I turn off the outside and host stand lights. Walked away to finish with the busser and bartender as I see the man banging on the door in the dark. Would you ever go somewhere just as it was about to close, or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for saying my family necklace will go to my birth daughter instead of my adoptive daughter? I, 30 female, just had a baby, Lily, a few months ago with my husband, 31 male. I have a son from a past marriage, 12, Jack, and my husband adopted a girl, 14, Emily, about 3 years ago. Edit to add, I forgot to mention I married my husband about 1.5 years ago. I love my adoptive daughter so much, and I try to be a mother figure to her. She doesn't call me mom and isn't very interested in spending time together, which I respect because she's been through a lot, but I still make a point to include her in discussions and try to spend special one-on-one time with her. I have a necklace that has been in my family for a few generations. First one to have it was my great-grandma. She received it on her wedding day, so now it's given to the oldest daughter on her wedding day, which is when I received it. It's very beautiful and priceless, and I keep it in a special box that stays locked up with a key. My family is aware of this necklace, and my kids have seen it and know the significance. We were having a get-together with family because you know what is finally allowing it. My grandma started asking about the necklace and if it will continue the tradition and go to Lily someday, which I said yes to. My husband, who was half listening, turned and said, "Shouldn't it go to Emily?" I didn't want to discuss this in front of our family, so I smiled and said we could talk about it later. My husband kept pushing it, and Emily heard her name, so she became involved with the conversation as well. My mom said that the necklace obviously should go to Lily because she is blood family, which I later told her was a very inconsiderate thing to say in front of Emily. I didn't really voice an opinion one way or another, but I did agree that it makes sense to go to Lily. Emily hates arguments and raised voices, so she said, "I wouldn't want your stupid necklace anyways," and ran inside crying. My husband went to talk to her. My family thinks that Lily deserves the necklace, and while it is sad for Emily, she is old enough to understand the differences. I really love Emily, and I don't ever want to hurt her, But I agree that this necklace might mean more to Lily since it will be from her direct heritage. Emily also has her own items that her mother gave her. I suggested to Emily that she and I go pick out a necklace together for her, just the two of us, but she refused and isn't talking to me. My husband doesn't want to get in the middle of this because it's my necklace and my decision, but I can tell he feels disappointed that I would consider choosing Lily over Emily. My other worry is if Emily gets the necklace, Lily will find out in the future from my family and might get upset. Please let me know if I'm in the wrong here. I really don't know how to solve this. Edit for clarification. I've seen a lot of comments here misinterpreting the situation. I'm not against giving Emily the necklace. I worry about her not valuing it because right now she doesn't want to be a part of my family. If Lily grows up and doesn't value it, she won't get it either. So my question is more, am I the jerk for automatically thinking my birth daughter would value the necklace more? I also did not adopt Emily when we got married, which she barely agreed to, but it still hasn't changed our relationship. Edit. Thank you for all the comments. I read through them all and there were mixed messages, but I know that the conversation should never have happened. We are going to table the necklace discussion for now and decide later if there's anything we want to happen to it. The current plan is to buy each of our kids, including my son, a special gift on their wedding day. The necklace will either be kept in my possession or go to my younger sister, who thinks we should take turns with it anyways, who is currently pregnant and could give it to her kid. I realize that I struggle a lot with Emily with trying to have a relationship with her, but I need to just continue and make sure she gets as much love as she can. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk to Emily and tell her I never meant to upset her and that I love her just as much as Lily, regardless of a silly tradition. I will keep trying to see if she wants to spend time with me, and hopefully someday she will want a relationship. Thank you all for your advice and votes. I hope that this can help our struggling little family. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you give the necklace to Emily or Lily? Please let us know.
I've got a solution. Just give it to me.
Remake the whole order? You got it. Worked at a crazy popular restaurant with a huge outdoor deck on the ocean. It was a river leading to the ocean, but as we said in the South at the time, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. This place was right next to the cruise ship terminal, so we had literally watched thousands of people disembark and hundreds head for our restaurant at the same time. Needless to say, we'd be packed with a line out the door at these times. A group of 6 comes in.
And we want to sit on the ocean.
Okay, you and everybody else. I tell them it's a 30 to 45 minute wait unless they want to eat indoors, which is quicker. They grumble, but they can see we're swamped and begrudgingly accept the pager I give them, insisting they need to sit on the ocean. You're willing to wait? No worries. I inform them that the ticket times right now are currently higher than normal, being that the cruise ship just dropped off hundreds of people. They say that's fine. Great, hang out over there and I'll buzz you. 20 minutes go by, and a younger lady with long and curly red-headed hair from the group approaches me at the front desk, waving the pager around.
Is this thing broken? This thing must be broken. We've been waiting an hour.
No you haven't. We have OpenTable, a reservation system that tracks your status in real time. I spin the computer around to show her that. In fact, you've been here literally 21 minutes, and you're going to have to wait at least another 10 to 20 more minutes. She throws a fit in front of some of the other guests in the lobby, but they're definitely not on Team Merida. Back to the waiting area she goes. We get them sat at a picnic table on the front water, prime real estate. It was about 40 minutes from when I quoted her, so I had 5 to spare. The rest of her group is happy with the spot and looks hungry and ready to order. I motion over their server, Leia, and say, let's get this order in quickly. Not good enough for her. She again complains that they've waited an hour. Nope, 40 minutes, and that they should get free appetizers at the very least. Now me, I will always admit a mistake on our part and make it right, but we quoted her, gave her the best table possible, and still came in under time. This is business as usual. But sometimes I'm a nice guy and realize people are hungry, low blood sugar, and need some love. So I ask her, have you ever had she crab soup? She looks bewildered and shakes her head. I say, I'm gonna bring you some she crab soup. The group orders appetizers and entrees at the same time. Leia asks if they want her to bring it all out together. No, they say. Bring the apps first, then fire the entrees. Leia does just that, and it takes about 20 plus minutes for them to come up. Since we have a problem child, I run the apps personally. Put fried green tomatoes, crab cakes, and of course, the delicious she crab soup on the tray. Run it out to them. drop the apps on the table, and like a scene in The Matrix, I watch one of Brave's curly red 10-inch hairs slow-mo fall from her own head into the bowl of soup I've just presented to her. She looks down and freaks out.
Your hair is in the soup. This is disgusting. You need to remake this entire order.
Y'all, I'm bald. I shave my head every day. You could pluck your eyebrows while looking at the back of my head. As gently as I can, I tell her I watched her own flowing, luxurious lock fall into the soup and insist it's not mine. She is in an outrage, calling me a liar and insisting that I did this on purpose because I didn't like her. She demands I remake the entire order. The rest of the table is uncomfortable, sees she's in a mini rage world, and insists it's fine. Let's just eat. Me? Nope. Yes, ma'am. And I scoop everything off the table onto my tray. Apps, beverages, plates, silverware. Let's start over, and hopefully we can get off on a new foot. By the way, I mentioned that ticket times were long as the cruise ship had just docked, so it may be a little while to get you a new course of appetizers. We'll do our best. As busy as we are, I'll have some new beverages out to you as soon as Leia slows down. I go into my kitchen and tell my slammed sous chef Brian that I needed a refire on that ticket. He is a loud and angry dude and initially screams at me. But on the plus side, he's also incredibly vindictive. So when I tell him, this one's about sending a message, he smiles and puts the ticket at the end of the line. 2 hours later, the table finished and left Leia a 30% tip. Guess who didn't pay the bill? Worst part of the story, she never got to try the she crab soup. Am I the jerk for not paying for my siblings to go to uni? I'm 29, female. My siblings are two 19-year-old females who are twins and 17-year-old male. About a year ago, I won a rather large amount of money. Since then, I paid off my mortgage, bought a rental home, paid for my parents to spend 2 months on holiday, paid off their mortgage, and bought each of my younger siblings either a car or, in the case of my brother, a motorbike. I have recently started planning my wedding to my partner of 4 years. Originally, we were going to have a very low-budget wedding because neither of us were particularly wealthy and have little financial support from our parents. But now we plan on having a slightly bigger wedding. However, during these discussions, my mother has been getting increasingly upset at the amount I'm spending. Wedding will be around $40,000 to $50,000 all up, including honeymoon, and partner is contributing $12,000, so it's not like we're spending an astronomical amount, and has repeatedly suggested that we stick to our low-budget plans and give money to her for my siblings' college funds instead. These comments have been confusing me because she's told me in the past that she got $20,000 when I was born to put away towards my college fund from her parents and then $10,000 for each of my siblings. I got through college on scholarships and my part-time job, so presumably she has $50,000 already for my siblings' college fund. This came to a head about a week ago when she came with me to go to my fitting for my wedding dress and she saw the price tag, $3,000. She had a complete meltdown in the store about me wasting money and how she needed it, and I confronted her about the college fund. She admitted that she and my dad had spent the money on trips away, alcohol, and gambling, and now there was nothing left. I said if she wasted $50,000 meant for her children's college funds, then why should I give her any more? At this point, she stormed out after throwing her glass of wine on my dress. That cost $300 to clean, and has since said that she's not coming to my wedding and will stop my dad and siblings from coming. Am I the jerk here?
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.